Story 1. Caught my sister sleeping with my boyfriend for a year, so I cut them off, kept his PC, and now their lives are falling apart. Hey guys, I, 25F, found out that my sister, 24F, has been sleeping with my boyfriend, now ex, 25M, for 1 year or probably more. We dated for 3 years. They always had a close relationship, but I obviously took it as something innocent. I don't like video games, but my sister does, so they talked a lot by text, and I thought it was about games they like. Until I found out that, no, they talked a lot about their secret dates while I was working in college. I found pictures, videos, and a lot of other disgusting things in the chats between my ex and my sister. My pathetic sister found pleasure in asking my pathetic ex all the time if she's smarter or prettier than me. She even compared our private parts, WTH. We're both pretty. She's actually thinner and prettier than me, and even if she's an introvert, she has her group of friends. So I really don't understand where she got so much venom towards me. Our parents never compared us or anything like that, and she was always the one asking my ex to compare both of us in the chats. The first thing I did was throw all my ex-boyfriend's things out of the apartment. I insulted him in 1,000 ways, and I kept the PC that I gave him for Christmas. I didn't speak a single word to my sister for over a week, and she didn't contact me, like the coward she is, until yesterday when she sent me a message trying to justify herself by saying that it was a mistake. Yes, a mistake that lasted more than a year and that I should forgive her because we're sisters and blah blah blah. At one point, I thought, should I be the mature person in the situation who doesn't let resentment speak for her? But then I realized that I've never been that kind of person. I took my phone and wrote a long message to my sister that I would love to write here, but I am sure that I would break the rules since I called her out in every possible way, and I wrote a lot of personal things too. I told her how much of a failure she is and how she has always envied me, and that's why she needed to feel what it's like to be me for a second of her sad life. She sent me a voice massage crying and saying that she's in a very weak moment mentally, but she's still with him, LMAO, and I shouldn't make her feel worse and that she regrets it. I just reacted to her message with an emoji and didn't even hear the long voice message until the end. Was it a low thing to attack her with all her flaws? Yes. But it's lower to betray your sister and believe that she's going to forgive you just because you share blood with her. Honestly, I feel really good after sending her that message and feel that it was therapeutic to take out everything I feel to give closure to that. By the way, I've never used a PC for gaming, but I'm looking for tutorials on YouTube about how to download The Sims. I helped my sister in every moment of her life. I literally fought for her when she was being bullied during high school. I helped her thousands of times to make friends. I even accompanied her everywhere she wanted. It is a betrayal that really hurts, and I will never forgive. Never. It hurts me that she slept with someone I loved, but it hurts me a lot more with all the things I read in those chats. How she enjoyed watching him compare me to her, or how she asked him about personal things about our relationship just to laugh at it. She's dead to me, and my parents know it. I don't even care if I'm a bad person like them. This is something I can't forgive, and I don't even feel bad for my reaction. Edit. I posted half of the message comments, oop. On her parents' reaction, oop, my mother was disgusted, and my father was angry, but they only comforted me until I left their house. I don't know what they talked to my sister about afterwards, and I don't want to ask, but they will probably cut contact with her. She just said that it was a mistake, and in the voice message, she only talked about how weak she feels mentally and that she has been having anxiety attacks, even though I didn't hear the full audio because it lasts more than 4 minutes, and I was getting even more pissed off with her just wanting to be the victim, so I stopped the audio almost at the end. She never explained why she said all those ugly things about me because everything was about her having anxiety attacks. Update 1, February 2nd, 2024. Thank you for all the nice comments you left me. Many wrote to me with tips for The Sims, and I'm really grateful. Thanks for the game recommendations, even though I'm really bad at playing action games. The last action game I played was Resident Evil 4 on the PS2 a long time ago, and it was because I had a crush on Leon Kennedy. He would never cheat on me, by the way. As a token of appreciation, and because I also like it when the OP uploads the whole gossip, I will put here half of the message I sent to my sister. The message I sent her was really long, and I cut out the parts where I talk about very private things or when I insulted her to not make the post too uncomfortable because I was really hurt and angry at that moment, and I talked about many personal things in the text. I'm not interested in hearing any of your excuses. I believed you when a problem she had with her ex-friend group happened because I really trusted that you would never do something like that, but now I understand why everyone leaves you alone, and you deserve it. What you did to me is brutal, and you know it, but you didn't care because you spent a year being the a-hole of X's name without any shame, and now that I found out everything, you went days without talking to me because you are a coward. And on top of that, you still don't care about what you did to me. You're only talking to me because Dad probably stopped talking to you, and you're running out of money, so you want to fix this shit so he gives you money again. You were always an a-hole, but don't you think it's a lot to be my boyfriend's second woman? How little respect do you have for yourself? We're sisters. I don't even know what's going on in your head because I don't understand what's wrong with you. Girl. I read all the messages between you, and you even started comparing our bodies. You're sick, you know that? I never did anything for you to do this to me, and I loved you, but everything turned out really well for you because he's with you, so enjoy that feeling and the love you two have for the other for now, because you are going to be really lonely later and you are going to go back to your cave, but this time I am not going to be there to pity you like every time I did before. Stay with him. There's nothing that interests me less than fighting for an idiot who is surely going to leave you. But let me make it clear to you that you're not going to hear about me again. This dies here. We are not sisters anymore. If I see you on the street, I'm going to cross to the opposite sidewalk to not see you. Update 2. May 17th, 2024. They broke up. Nobody was surprised. When all of this happened, my parents scolded my sister, and she got offended and didn't speak to our parents except to ask them for money. She asked them for money to buy things for her career, but then my aunt told my parents that my sister actually used that money to buy my ex some sneakers. My parents never gave her any money from that day on. She's an idiot. TBH. My parents started to pay for us to go to a private college, and the only thing we have to do is literally study. The only thing she had to do was take her studies seriously, but she didn't, so my father got tired and hasn't sent her money for months. My ex discovered the post because he said it went viral, and obviously he recognized the story. He contacted me to apologize and said he knows he did wrong by hurting me like that, but my sister manipulated him and it was a total mistake. I told him he can shove his apologies up his ass. Meanwhile, my sister and I have only crossed paths a few times, but she always avoids me because she thinks I'm going to hit her. I won't. We're not going to the same career, so we luckily don't see each other too much anyway. A few days ago, she went to our parents' house saying that she broke up with my ex and that she felt really sad and had an anxiety attack. I don't know exactly what they talked about since I wasn't there, but my mother told me that she told my sister that she knew what was going to happen when she slept with him, and my sister justified herself by saying that they are in love, so my mother and her just argued again and my sister left. Now she doesn't talk to anyone in the family except our grandmother to ask for money. I know my sister is not going to change her bad habits, and she didn't learn anything from this. I even think she will get together with my ex again because they're just toxic with each other, but it's her life to ruin, not mine, and I don't care anymore. The bright side. I sold the PC to a guy from Reddit that saw my post, and that really saved me from having to keep paying the dues. Unfortunately, I didn't get to play The Sims much, but I prefer the extra money. My ex had told me that he wanted the PC back, but I told him that then he should pay the remaining dues, and he said no. So the idiot wanted the PC for free even though he slept with my sister. I know it's a boring update, and probably everyone wanted that the update was my sister begging for forgiveness and my ex suffering. But no. They are just two idiots who deserve each other, and nothing more happened. But even today I received a message asking me for an update. Comment. OP on if she forgives her sister and her boyfriend. I'm going to go ahead and not forgive them. I can do both at the same time, and no, I don't forgive my sister, and I don't want her to forget this, and I don't want to see her again. In a few years, I'll remember these two idiots and laugh, but that doesn't mean they deserve my forgiveness. Update 3. August 10th, 2024. Hi. It's been a while since my last update, but some things have happened. First of all, almost 1 month ago, my sister talked to me from another number to tell me that her friend saw my post. For the first time, we spoke again. She made a big fuss saying that I didn't even change our ages or data, so her friend obviously acknowledged that I was talking about her since I didn't even hide my nationality. I told her that I wasn't interested about it. She told me I'm a POS and I portrayed her, but honestly, I don't regret it. No one here knows her face, and I'm the one who looks like a cuckold in front of everyone. She started pressuring me to delete the posts, but I told her that it doesn't make sense anymore because it's everywhere, so I just blocked that number too. A few weeks after I made my last post, they came back, but now they're not back together anymore. Acquaintances in common that I have with both of them usually tell me that they cheat on each other all the time, or maybe they have an open relationship. They always see them with other people in clubs. I'm not really interested in it since I avoid going to the same clubs as them. It's really annoying because my sister used to not go to clubs, but now she started to go to the same ones I always used to go. She had always criticized me for going to those environments. At this exact moment, they are not together, and my ex has been looking for excuses to see me, like returning clothes that I forgot at his house, which I don't need. That's why I was not interested in going to look for them. So one day he came to my apartment unannounced to bring me my clothes, and I had no choice but to let him in. And we slept together. Just kidding, haha. I just let him into my apartment to leave the clothes. I should talk to the manager to tell him that he is no longer allowed to have free access to my door, and it was very uncomfortable because he reminded me all the time that he is no longer with my sister and that I am a great woman. I told him that I know I am great, but I am not interested in hearing about his relationship with my sister. I love gossip though, and I just invited him to leave my place. He even tried to kiss me on the cheek before leaving. Yikes. Meanwhile, my parents don't know what to do with my sister anymore because she's even stopped going to college. Although she's never really paid much attention to her studies, and they're tired of spending money if she doesn't make an effort. They have warned her that if she continues like this, they will stop paying for her university, but from what my mother said, my sister does not care and she really believes that my parents will at some point give her money again to fulfill her whims. I really hope right now that she doesn't get pregnant, but I'm even afraid she'll do that so my parents can support her again. And about me, I feel much better except for the fact that I don't go to my favorite club anymore. I'm very well emotionally, and I've already reached a point where I hear their shit show as if it were something B to me, and I was just watching two crazy clowns. Now on to the next story. Story 2. My wife showed zero interest in our marriage while I handled everything at home. Then I found out she was cheating with a coworker, and she's pregnant with his baby. I, 35M, have been married to my wife, 37F, for 7 years, and we were together another 3 before that. We have a daughter, 5F, who is the absolute light of my life. On paper, our marriage looks perfect to anyone looking in from the outside. We own a nice house in a good school district, both work full-time, and have what most people would consider a successful life. Her job requires her to travel sometimes and be in the office about 3 days a week. My job doesn't pay as well as hers, but I work completely remote, which lets me handle most of the childcare stuff like taking our daughter to soccer practice, doctor appointments, and generally keeping things running around the house. I try to make sure our daughter has a great childhood despite the fact that her mom isn't around as much. Not that my wife doesn't care about our daughter. She does. But I'm the one handling the day-to-day stuff while she builds her career. And before anyone jumps to conclusions, this isn't about weight gain or physical appearance or anything like that. I stay pretty active and fit, and my wife is the same. We're both healthy and take care of ourselves. She goes running most mornings when she's home, and I work out in our garage gym a few times a week. That's not the issue here at all. The real problem is that for about the last 4 or so years, my wife has shown basically zero interest in our marriage. She acts more like we're roommates who happen to co-parent than actual partners. There's basically no romance or intimacy anymore. And when I say intimacy, I know some people immediately think I'm just complaining about sex, but that's not what I mean. I'm talking about all the little things that make you actually feel like a couple. Holding hands, random kisses, cuddling on the couch, actual conversations about our lives, and, yeah, sex too, but it's the whole package that's missing. When we first got together, we were that couple that made everyone else roll their eyes because we were so into each other, always holding hands, leaving little notes for each other, planning surprise dates, the whole thing. I'm not expecting that exact honeymoon phase energy after 10 years. But Jesus, something would be nice. Now, she makes it painfully obvious that she isn't interested in any of that stuff. If I try to hold her hand, she'll tolerate it for maybe 30 seconds before finding some reason to need both hands. If I try to kiss her when she gets home from work, she'll turn her head so I get her cheek. If I suggest watching a movie together after our daughter goes to bed, she's suddenly too tired, but then stays up scrolling on her phone for another 2 hours. I thought maybe she was just stressed from work or something, so I started trying to take more off her plate at home. I do all the cooking now, most of the cleaning, handle all the childcare logistics. That didn't change anything. If anything, she just seemed to retreat further. Like she appreciated having less responsibility at home but didn't see it as a reason to engage more with me. We used to text each other throughout the day, just checking in, sharing funny stories, sending memes, that kind of thing. Now, I'm lucky if she responds to direct questions. What time will you be home? Do we need anything from the store? I've tried starting conversations about her work or her day, and I just get one-word answers or "it was fine." My wife also shows absolutely no interest in my life anymore. She has forgotten important events like our anniversary and my birthday multiple times. The last time I had a big presentation at work that I was nervous about, I mentioned it at dinner the night before. The next day, not a single text asking how it went. When I brought it up that evening, she said, "Oh, right, that was today. How'd it go?" Our last anniversary, I made dinner reservations weeks in advance at this place we've been wanting to try. Then, the day of, she texts me saying she needs to cancel because she has to work late on a Friday and will be traveling for work the following week. Didn't apologize, didn't suggest rescheduling, just can't make it, too busy with work. I ended up ordering a pizza and watching a movie alone after our daughter went to bed. For my birthday last year, she actually forgot completely until her mom called to wish me happy birthday, and my wife had to pretend she'd already done so. Then she ran out and bought some random gift card on her way home from work. The year before that, she remembered the day but got me a generic gift that showed zero thought. A wallet when I had just bought myself a new one 2 months earlier that she had seen me using every day. I honestly don't know what changed. After our daughter was born, sure, things were different for a while, but that's to be expected. But even during that early baby stage, we still felt like a team. We were tired and stressed, but we were in it together. Around the time she turned 1, something just shifted, and it's been getting steadily worse ever since. I used to think maybe my wife was depressed or something, but she doesn't seem unhappy in general. She goes out with her work friends regularly, seems excited about her job, promotions and projects, takes care of herself, all that stuff. It's just our marriage that she seems completely checked out of. I've been seeing a therapist for my own stuff for about a year now, and when I brought all this up, they suggested couples therapy and offered to give me some recommendations. When I mentioned this to my wife, she immediately shut it down, saying, "There's nothing wrong with me. I don't need therapy." She acted like I was accusing her of being crazy or something, which wasn't what I was saying at all. I tried explaining that couples therapy isn't about fixing someone who's broken. It's about improving communication and reconnecting, but she wasn't having it. I feel like I've tried everything I can think of to save our marriage. I've tried giving her space, thinking maybe she just needed some time to herself. I've tried being more attentive and planning special things for her. Nothing has worked. I've tried making so many suggestions for ways we could possibly improve our relationship. A family vacation? Our daughter won't appreciate it anyway. What 5-year-old wouldn't want to go to the beach for a few days? She loves the water and sand, but apparently, I'm wrong about that. A weekend getaway for just her and me? No, I'm too busy at work right now. Or sometimes it's, can't we just spend time together at home? But then when we're at home, she's either working on her phone or too tired to do anything. I suggested taking our daughter on a bike ride and going out for lunch on a weekend, thinking maybe a family activity would help. I just want to relax today. And then she spends the day doing laundry and reorganizing her closet, which apparently is more relaxing than a nice bike ride. One time I tried to talk to her about how disconnected I felt, and she accused me of being needy and suffocating her. I was asking for the bare minimum, just some basic attention and affection from my wife, and somehow I was the unreasonable one. I've brought these concerns to her attention multiple times over the years. Each time, things improve for maybe a week or two. She'll make an effort, suggest we watch a movie together, ask about my day, that kind of thing. But then it always slides right back to the status quo. The last serious talk we had about it was maybe 6 months ago. I laid it all out. How lonely I felt, how I missed her, how I wanted us to feel like partners again. She apologized and promised to make more of an effort. For about a week, she was more present. She came home from work on time, asked me questions about my day, even initiated sex once. Then her work got busy again, and it was right back to the same old pattern. Eventually, I just gave up trying to initiate anything with her. I stopped suggesting date nights or family outings. I stopped trying to hold her hand or kiss her. I stopped sharing details about my day or asking about hers beyond basic logistics. I just accepted that this is how things are now. And honestly, it's been miserable. I watched my parents stay in a failing marriage for over a decade for the kids. And all it did was make everyone in the house miserable and give me a completely warped idea of what a relationship should look like. My dad was clearly unhappy but just buried himself in work, and my mom was resentful and passive-aggressive all the time. They barely spoke to each other except to argue about bills or logistics about his kids. I promised myself I wouldn't put my own child through that. So recently I started looking for an out. I talked to a lawyer secretly and got divorce papers ready. I can afford a decent condo in town that would keep our daughter in the same school district with her friends. I can't afford our current house by myself, but the condo would be fine for me and my daughter when she's with me. I know some people might think I should have tried harder or been more patient, but honestly, I'm exhausted. I've been trying to keep this marriage alive mostly by myself for years, and I don't have anything left to give. I'm tired of feeling lonely while lying next to someone every night and being treated like I'm asking for the moon when all I want is basic affection and consideration from my wife. Sometimes I wonder if there's someone else. She works late a lot, travels for work, and is constantly on her phone, but I've never found any concrete evidence. And part of me doesn't even want to know. What would it change at this point? Whether she's cheating or just doesn't love me anymore, the result is the same. A couple of days ago, when our daughter was at a playdate, I finally confronted my wife. I told her straight up that I am seriously considering leaving her since I feel like I don't matter to her and our relationship is never a priority. I told her I have an exit plan ready, and if she doesn't make actual lasting changes by the new year, I'm going to file for divorce and go for full custody. She was completely blindsided and we got into a huge fight. She basically told me I was manipulative and a piece of shit for dropping this on her out of nowhere. She said I was emotional blackmailing her by threatening her with divorce and custody. I told her that none of this would be an issue if she cared about us or at least pretended to. I told her I don't want our daughter to grow up seeing how unhealthy our relationship is and thinking that's normal. She accused me of being selfish and only thinking about my own needs. She said she's been working hard to provide for our family, and that I should be more understanding of how stressful her job is. I pointed out that I've been understanding for years and that lots of people have stressful jobs without completely checking out of their marriages. The fight lasted for hours, with a lot of back and forth and bringing up old grievances. At one point, she accused me of being jealous of her career success, which is ridiculous. I've always been supportive of her professional goals. I'm the one who encouraged her to take the promotion that required more travel because I knew it was what she wanted, even though it meant more responsibilities for me. The fight ended with her storming out and staying at her sister's place. She came back the next day to get some clothes and stuff for work, and now we're doing this weird dance where we're both civil for our daughter's sake but not really talking to each other beyond necessary logistics. She keeps giving me these looks like I'm the one who destroyed everything. I know the ultimatum was harsh, and maybe I could have approached it differently, but I've spent years trying to talk to her about this, trying to fix things, trying to matter to her again, and nothing has changed. So, I don't know if I'm being unreasonable here or if my expectations of marriage are just too high. I just know I can't keep living like this. Edit. Just to address some common comments, yes, I have brought up my concerns about our marriage to her multiple times over the years. Things usually improve for a short while but are quickly back to the status quo in a week or two. And no, I don't have any evidence of cheating, though obviously, I can't know for sure. She works long hours and travels for work, so technically it would be possible, but I'm more inclined to think she just fell out of love with me and doesn't have the guts to end things. Also, to the people suggesting I should just get a hobby or focus on myself, I do have hobbies. I play guitar. I go hiking when I can find someone to watch our daughter. Having interests outside my marriage is not the issue. The issue is that I'm in a marriage that feels completely one-sided and empty. Update 1. It's been a crazy couple of weeks, unfortunately. I want to clear up a few things from the comments. First, to everyone saying I was an a-hole for threatening to go for full custody, yeah, you're right. I was angry and frustrated and said something I shouldn't have. That was a dick move on my part. I know our daughter needs both parents in her life, and I would never actually try to keep them apart unless there was some serious safety concern, which there isn't. My wife might not be a great partner, but she loves our daughter. To all the people who kept insisting she was cheating, congratulations. You were right. My marriage is over, and after talking to my wife, I realized it has been for a long time. The day after my post, I began the divorce process with my lawyer. She has been cheating for around 4 years now, which lines up almost exactly with when she started withdrawing from our marriage. Has been with a coworker. How original, right? Apparently, they started as just friends who would get lunch together during work, then drinks after work, and eventually, well, you know how these things go. Her explanation was that she felt unattractive after having our child, and I was busy with work and childcare. She said she wasn't planning on it happening. But this guy made her feel seen and appreciated in a way she hadn't felt in a long time. More recently, she admitted she has developed feelings for him and was considering leaving me for him anyway, which she is now free to do. When I found out, I was surprisingly calm. I think part of me had suspected it for a while, and honestly, it was almost a relief to finally know the truth. It explained so much about her behavior over the past few years. When I gave her the ultimatum, she was surprised that I was actually considering leaving her. She thought I knew about the affair already and was just trying to make her feel guilty or something. I don't know what kind of mental gymnastics that requires, but whatever. She said she'd been dropping hints that she was unhappy, as if that justified everything. Like I was supposed to pick up on her subtle cues and somehow conclude, oh, my wife is clearly having an affair. I should be more understanding. After the initial confrontation, we had a long, painful conversation about what had led us to this point. She tried to put some of the blame on me, saying I had been emotionally distant after our daughter was born. I reminded her that I was the one who had been trying to connect with her for years while she shut me out. She had no real response to that. We agreed to try to keep things as amicable as possible for our daughter's sake. No point in dragging each other through the mud any more than necessary. We're both going to need to co-parent for many years to come, so we might as well find a way to be civil. We sat our daughter down together and explained that we are splitting up, but we both love her more than anything. We kept it simple, emphasizing that it wasn't her fault and that both mommy and daddy would still be in her life every day. My daughter was understandably upset and is having a tough time with everything. She asked if we could all still live together, which broke my heart. I've been looking into therapy options for her and have made it clear that she can always tell me how she's feeling. This is honestly the hardest part of everything so far. Telling our families was another nightmare. My parents were supportive but sad. They've always liked my wife, and I think they had hopes we would work things out somehow. Her parents were more complicated. Her dad seemed disappointed in her while her mom kept trying to suggest ways we could fix things. As if there was anything left to fix at this point. My sister was furious on my behalf and wanted all the details of the affair, which I refused to give. I don't see how rehashing it all would help anyone. We also had to tell our friends, which was awkward as hell. Most of them were couples we'd known for years. Some took sides immediately, others tried to stay neutral. A few admitted they'd suspected something was wrong for a while, but didn't know how to bring it up. One of my wife's friends actually confessed she knew about the affair, but didn't tell me because she didn't want to get involved. That friendship is over, obviously. My wife and I are going to stay geographically close for our daughter's sake. I'm moving into a condo in early January, and my wife is going to move in with her coworker about 15 minutes away. With the sale of our house, I'll be able to pay off a large portion of my new place, which is something at least. I've been house hunting for a few weeks now, which is a whole other level of stress I didn't need. The real estate market in our area is brutal right now, but I think I found a decent place. It's smaller than our house, obviously, but it has a nice little yard and a second bedroom for my daughter. It's in a complex with a pool, which I know she'll love in the summer. According to the lawyer, we can have everything wrapped up by New Year's if it goes smoothly, but with the holidays coming up, I'll be happy with early January. There's a lot of paperwork and financial stuff to sort through. Luckily, we're both being relatively reasonable about the division of assets. We're going to split custody, with me having the weekdays and my wife having weekends. It's not ideal, but it's what works with our schedules. In the meantime, I'm going to start rebuilding my life. I didn't get married with the intention of getting divorced, but here we are. I'm going to work on myself and my relationship with my daughter. I'm planning to surprise her with a trip to Disney this winter. It'll be expensive as hell, but I really want to make her happy and create some happy memories. I'm going to miss her on weekends. This whole situation still feels surreal sometimes. I'll be going about my day and suddenly it hits me. I'm getting divorced. My marriage is over. There's a lot to process. Maybe one day I'll explain all this to my daughter when she's older and we can talk about it more. For now, I'm just focused on being the best dad I can be. Thanks again for all the support and advice. It really helped to have outside perspectives during this whole mess. Update 2. Hello again. I figured I would give one final update since some people have been messaging me asking how things turned out. My divorce has been finalized, and I feel both exhausted and relieved. This was the longest 9 months of my life, and I'm happy it's finally over. I do feel a little empty inside sometimes, but I know that will pass eventually. First off, thanks to everyone who sent supportive messages. It really helped during some of the darker moments of this process. There were definitely days when I questioned everything and wondered if I was making a huge mistake. So having that reassurance from strangers on the internet was surprisingly comforting. My ex-wife dragged parts of the process out more than needed, even though she said she wanted to divorce amicably, which was frustrating as hell. Just when I thought we had everything settled, she'd bring up some new issue or demand. She kept changing her mind about the division of personal property. First, she didn't want the dining set. Then she suddenly decided it had sentimental value. Then she didn't want it again. The back and forth was exhausting. She ended up finding her own place instead of moving in with the coworker like she planned, which she was not happy about. Apparently, things weren't as perfect with him as she thought they'd be. From what I've gathered, their relationship started hitting some rocky patches once it was out in the open and they had to deal with real-life stuff instead of just the exciting sneaking around phase. I can't say I'm surprised. She's also pregnant now, but neither of those things are my problem anymore. I found out through our daughter, who innocently mentioned that Mommy has a baby in her tummy. That was a fun conversation. Apparently, she's about 4 months along, which means she got pregnant right around the time all this was blowing up. She and the coworker are still together as far as I know, though I've heard it's been tense. I ended up with primary custody of our daughter. I get most weeknights and most weekends plus travel. This wasn't what we originally planned, but my ex's situation changed, and this arrangement works better for everyone involved right now. She still sees our daughter regularly, but with her morning sickness and general pregnancy exhaustion, plus her job, she agreed that our daughter would have more stability with me as the primary. My daughter and I are both doing well and adjusting to things. She still asks sometimes when we're all going to live together again, which is tough, but those questions are getting less frequent. She's seeing a therapist who is helping her work through her emotions, and I tried to make the holiday special for her. The Disney trip was a hit, by the way. Expensive as hell, but worth every penny to see her that happy. We went for 4 days and did all the princess stuff she wanted. She got to meet Elsa, which was apparently the highlight of her entire life so far. I've got about 1,000 pictures of her grinning with various Disney characters. Those memories are priceless. This will be my last update. I'm ready to close this chapter and move forward with my life. Thanks for listening to my story and for all the support along the way. Now on to the next story. Story 3. Sil picked a revealing bridesmaid dress and demanded that I cover my tattoos for her wedding, then called me trashy for having curves and spread lies about me. I, 25F, was set to be a bridesmaid for my Sil, 31F, for her upcoming wedding. My Sil can be a control freak and has the tendency to set expectations that are pretty unrealistic and inconsiderate at times. As you would imagine, that would apply to what she would request of her bridesmaids for her wedding. I know people have differing opinions when it comes to bridesmaids' dresses, but I'm someone who follows the opinion that the bride should have the final say, as it is her day, especially if the bridesmaids' dresses are being paid for. However, regardless of who is paying, I also think brides should also be mindful that if they want everyone to wear the exact same dress, it would be respectful to check if everyone is comfortable with certain styles, especially if there are people in the group who might dress up a little more modestly. In this specific situation, all the bridesmaids had to pay, which I obviously didn't mind. Here's the thing. My sil asked her 3 closest friends first and already decided on the same dress for everyone to wear together before she asked me. I had no expectation that she would ask me, so I had no idea what they picked. If there is one thing you should know, it is that I dress pretty modestly, especially at church. Since it's a church wedding, the dress they picked out was pushing my personal comfort level. It was a lilac chiffon one-shoulder, floor-length dress with a slit that goes way above the knee, basically up to where most of my upper thigh would be exposed. I didn't want to make a big deal over it because they had already decided on it together, and since it's what my S really wanted, I kept my concern to myself. I low-key wished we all decided together, especially since there were 3 more people, including myself, that were not asked to be bridesmaids till after. Even though the dress wasn't within my modesty standards, I still decided to go along with it because I didn't want drama and just wanted to make her happy. My plan was to change after the festivities during the reception, which a couple more bridesmaids planned to do so as well, and my S didn't mind. I thought things were going to be okay until my S told me last week that she didn't want my tattoos to be noticeable and wanted them covered as it would be inappropriate in church and didn't want them in the pictures. I am tatted on my wrists, shoulders, and on my back. The tattoos on my shoulders and back are not small pieces and are very noticeable with the dress that was picked out. She told me that she's been concerned about them showing because of the dress, and keep in mind she knows about my tattoos and the dress was still picked knowing they would show. I was annoyed, but since I already paid for the dress, I asked if I could wear a shawl, and she said no because she didn't want me to stand out from the rest of the group, especially since I'm not the most modest. She suggested this foundation that covers tattoos, which was $140 to $150. I'm not going to spend that much on a foundation I'm not going to use again. Plus, there's a chance it will get on my dress and make a mess. I told her I didn't think it was fair to expect this when she knows I have tattoos and still picked a dress that will have them show. If she had a problem, why pick something without sleeves or ask me to be a bridesmaid if she was going to be so adamant about the style knowing she didn't want my tattoos being visible? She said I was being unfair and that it was her day and all she is asking for me to accommodate, and that it would not look good for a Catholic wedding. When she said that, I got mad because it's always the people who start with the religious guilt, don't even follow their faith, and are quick to judge. My S literally has done and continues to do everything in the book that would not be okay for a practicing Catholic to do, but I never judge her because I have a past too and still struggle, yet for her to say it would not be appropriate for a Catholic wedding is just hypocritical and made me feel like I was going to make it unholy somehow over them. I got tatted when I walked away from my faith, but I came back to it and I'm pretty devout now despite my struggles with my shortcomings. For her to say I'm not accommodating is just beyond me because she already knows how I dress now, especially in a church setting. I even cover my hair at church and I still pushed my convictions and preferences aside and wore this for her because I wanted to keep the peace and not make a fuss. When I told her all of this, she started making comments about how I'm being selfish for not putting on the foundation and then proceeded to say that the dress looks trashy on me anyways because of my body. I'm on the curvy side and unfortunately have a large chest, so certain styles will make me look bigger and emphasize my chest. And that's what the dress did to me. Not trying to brag, I personally don't like it, hence why I'm mindful of how I dress. But it's not like it's in my control as to how the dress would fit and look on me, but it's overall why I prefer to be more covered. I just ended the conversation with, if it's going to continue as an issue, I don't want to trouble you further and would rather you pick someone else because we can't see eye to eye. I feel bad for dropping, but her wedding is not for 5 months and I just think it's for the best I'm no longer part of the bridal party. Aita? Edit. Hey y'all. Just to clarify something in response to some comments that wasn't mentioned in this post earlier. This SIL is my husband's sister. None of my brothers are married. Trust me, I would have responded to her a little differently if that were the case. But since she is my husband's blood, it's his job to put her in check, because that's his sister, which he did already. I can totally make another post to share what happened in that conversation between the two of them, but I don't want to because it's a lot to unpack. Thank you for the comments, it's definitely made me feel better about my decision instead of feeling bad. Update. December 30th, 2024. Before I dive into my husband confronting her, I should provide some background on my overall experience with my relationship with my SIL. In the beginning of my initial post, I talked about how she has the tendency to be controlling and set very unrealistic expectations that can influence the way she treats other people. Let me make one thing clear. She and I were very close at one point, or so I thought, and I treated her like my own older sister. She has even seen me at some of my worst moments since I've been with her brother. But even then, I knew about her toxic behaviors, but part of me always prayed she'll grow and do better with time. Almost 7 years later, and she clearly proves me wrong every time. In the years I've known her, I've noticed how she does pride herself as being the favorite child between her, my husband, and their brother. I didn't grow up with my half-siblings and grew up very much an only child, so I never really understood the dynamics between siblings and the competitiveness between them for parental approval and praise. TBH, my husband and his brother don't really take any of it to heart or see anything as a competition, but their sister does. Any given opportunity, she finds a way to make remarks about how she is the favorite and which among them is the least favorite among the three of them. I initially saw it as joking and typical sibling banter, but as time went on, it would irritate me. It especially doesn't help when I notice that my in-laws don't even realize they play favorites/enable her BS. For example, if my SIL makes an inappropriate joke or says something to the wrong person, they never say anything to her, but heaven forbid my husband or his brother make a joke about something, they get worked up. It's clear because they're not treated equally. She really does think she can act however she wants. Not going to get into detail, but she has done things in the past that only prove that as long as things are going in her favor in regards to her parents' approval, they are very religious people for context. She has no problem outing or screwing over her brothers. My husband has kept a lot of her dirty secrets, and in a moment of vulnerability where he trusted her, she turns around and tells my in-laws everything so she can look like the older sibling who cares enough to tell their parents what is going on with him, even though she has done worse that would piss off my in-laws. You might be asking, why not say anything to them as payback? My husband and I are the type of people who also don't think stooping to her level won't achieve anything. Essentially, they're not my secrets to tell because that's between her and God and whether or not she will ever come clean to their folks. Overall, that alone really changed my husband's view of his sister because it showed how selfish she is, and of course he felt betrayed. Even though this specific occurrence happened almost 6 years ago, he forgave but never forgot. Since then, and just over the time that I've been with my husband, everything she says and does just doesn't go unnoticed. I know some of you guys may ask why let it drag, and well, if she is ever confronted for something she did wrong, she always finds ways to make herself the victim and gets the whole family involved, so you'd be talking to a wall of nonsense and excuses. We just learned to set boundaries, especially when it comes to family functions at this point. I guess my S sees through her BS but doesn't exhaust himself to confront her because my MAL is overprotective of her, even when she knows her daughter can act very inappropriately. From what I see, MIL gets like that because SIL has ran away and temporarily cut ties with them when things don't go her way. And I get it, she wouldn't want to have a strained relationship with her daughter, but still. So, imagine how angry my husband is because he's already been holding it in with his frustrations with his sister and knowing how passive his parents have become when it comes to her. Well, when he confronted her via FaceTime, he obviously came to my defense and told her that she is being unreasonable and unfair and, well, cussed her out because she kept making all kinds of excuses, and he basically handed her ass back to her. He didn't just leave it at regarding the wedding. He called her out on everything and something she also said about me to other family that we were not made aware of till a few hours before he called her. Turns out she was going around talking about the whole dress and tattoo situation and me dropping from the bridal party to some family members, one of which recorded what she was saying and sent it to my husband. Then she went off on a tangent talking about how his brother can do so much better than me, and how she feels so sorry for her baby brother because I'm so lazy and won't help him financially, basically referring to how my husband is supporting us while I'm in school full-time. Keep in mind, I'm in medical school. Working part-time is not even an option for most med students. My husband went off on her about that and why our marriage and decisions bother her that much to bring it up. My husband's traditional and believes that he as a man should provide regardless of whether or not I choose to work. He decided he wanted to support us so I can follow my dream to pursue medicine, and that bothers her enough to downplay me as a lazy freeloader when my career will eventually provide with more stability for us down the line. Regardless of how anyone looks at this, I don't know what her issues are, but targeting me just doesn't make any sense. After 30 minutes of yelling and hearing her fake cry her, "I'm sorry butts," my husband told her, since her wedding day is a family event, he'll still participate out of obligation and I will be a guest, but to consider that to be the last time we will ever be involved in something that involves her. We're only planning to stay for the wedding mass and we leave right after dinner. Free food. LOL. That's all I know at this point. Why still attend? But my husband is also good friends with her fiancé and as a groomsman and it wouldn't feel right to drop on him just because my SIL is crazy. However, my husband gave her an ultimatum that if he finds out she pulls similar crap again between now and the wedding, then we won't go to the wedding altogether. Going forward after said wedding, or if she decides to open her mouth again, my husband decided we won't contact them or see them again, which it makes it easy since they will be moving to a different state. I'm counting down the days. If there's something I want to make clear here at the end of my post, is that I do not wish her anything bad, nor do I hate her. I do forgive her. However, for my mental and emotional health, I just won't maintain a relationship with her of any kind going forward. I do genuinely pray she grows and learns from all of this and makes better choices if she has kids one day. I also hope she questions if this toxicity was worth losing a relationship with her brother. Now on to the next story. Story 4. My wife refused to let my teenage daughter move back home because she's not real family. After our fight, she admitted she was jealous of my daughter. Anna is 16 years old. She was in an accident when I was 24. Anna's mother and I were never together as a couple because it was a one-night stand, but we have maintained a friendly and healthy co-parenting since she was born, and we became good friends. My daughter has been living on another continent for a few years with her mother and stepfather, but she wants to come back because she doesn't feel comfortable there and misses her family and friends. Anna doesn't know their language well and it's still hard for her to learn it fully, so she feels really lonely there since it is different to speak your native language than to make friends by speaking a foreign language from zero. I spoke with my daughter's mother and we thought it was a good idea to let Anna live with me. Her room is now my home office, but I can easily put together a room for her again. We didn't confirm anything. I talked to my wife about it first and I was sure that she was going to be okay with that because we literally talked about that possibility before. The problem is that my wife doesn't want that to happen. My wife and Anna have never been close because they only met in person for our wedding, when I was able to pay a ticket for my daughter to come. That was the last time I saw my daughter in person too. Plane tickets are too expensive, but they do tend to talk a little bit when I make video calls with Anna every day, but not too much. Anna also talks to her brother and he likes her a lot, even if they just see each other in video calls. My wife says Anna is not going to feel comfortable in a house with strangers, and I told her that we are literally her family. She said, "No, she and our toddler are not Anna's family because they barely know her in person." It honestly hurts me that she thinks that way, but I understand her point of view, although our toddler is Anna's brother, and it really annoyed me that she said that, because our little one really loves his sister even if they just see each other online. I had an argument with my wife about it and I ended up telling her that my daughter will always come first. First of all, because it's true for me. My children will always come before any other person, and she knew very well about my daughter when we married. My wife got angry and said that bringing Anna home would change how we handle ourselves and that she doesn't want to be a stepmother. She said that Anna lived with her mother in another continent, so it's not the same as having her right here every day. I told her that no one is asking her to be a stepmother because I will be the one who takes care of her, as always. My daughter used to stay many days and even months with me, and I was the one who took care of her. I'm not going to give my wife all the work because I was a single father for a long time and I know how to take care of my daughter. I work, I clean, I cook. I take full care of our son when she works and wants to go out and do something, just like she does with me. We both support each other in raising our son. I don't know why many people are so shocked about the fact that I take responsibility for my own child, but that if she doesn't respect my daughter's presence in the house and hates it that much, then she has all the freedom to go to a hotel room. I was a big idiot because those words obviously ended up really bad and we had a worse argument. My daughter has every right to live in my house if she wants, but my wife doesn't want that. I really love my wife, but my biggest focus is to give the best to my children and I would love to have my princess here after years. My wife hasn't been talking to me at all and she's very angry, But she does continue with the same stance that she doesn't want Anna here at all, and I know I will get angry and we will end up arguing again because I'm not going to leave my daughter alone. My wife always knew that Anna lived with me several days a week when she was still in the country because I talked with her about that and the possibility of Anna's family returning to the country if things went wrong. That would have meant that Anna would come back to live with me for many days or even months like she always did. My daughter used to come at my house every day too. My wife agreed with that years ago when we talked about that, but now admits that she thought my daughter was going to stay out of the country with her mother because their business is going really well. I changed some data to not make it too obvious because my daughter uses Reddit too. Edit. Guys, I've been reading the comments nonstop for 2 hours and I have too much to think about. Thank you very much for the advice, whether bad or good. This is helping me to reflect on several things that I did not take into account. But please don't be so harsh because I'm a real person, haha. Relevant comments where OP has replied, the discussion with his wife. We had it because she knows that my daughter used to stay in my home before she left the country. My wife says that in her mind my daughter was always going to live with her mother. To another commenter, she didn't say that when we got married, she said it now. When I told her about that possibility years ago, she just said she was okay with it. Now she admits that she thought Anna would stay there. Commenter, if she doesn't change her mind, do you see your marriage lasting? To be honest, no, not at all. Even if I love my wife, my daughter no longer feels welcome in her school or comfortable. I don't want her to feel that way here too. Commenter, what are you going to do about the child that you guys share? My son would never be homeless. Being okay with my wife would be the ideal plan, but if she continues to reject my daughter's presence and we break up, I'm going to make sure I pay her and our son a good place to stay and go for 50-50 custody like I had with Anna or make some kind of cohabitation agreement. I'm going to do the same thing with my son that I did with my daughter, which was go see her every day and take care of her. I wouldn't fight with my wife or stress our son out with grown-up stuff. Commenter, not picking sides here, but if your wife leaves, so does your son. Everyone is screaming, put your child first. You may have your daughter full-time and your son 50-50ths. I doubt they would take a toddler away from a woman you say is a wonderful mother. I think the rock in the hard place is a lot harder than you think. OP, yes, I've been thinking about that too. Co-parenting with Anna's mother has always been really easy because we've always been good friends and there was never a fight. But I don't want to think that if I divorce my wife or we break up because of this, I'll have a harder time seeing my son or how the co-parenting would be with her. Update 1. May 15, 2024. I'm sorry, but I decided to delete the post because a weirdo started to just spam my private messages with different accounts, and I don't know if I can put the account on private or something like that. I don't use the site too much, but a bot started sending me messages asking if I needed help, so I think my account could get banned because of that person doing this, and I'm too old for this, so I just rather post the update here where I can at least close the comments. I guess the post will be here if someone cares. First of all, I want to clarify that I am from a third world country. Here, it is really expensive to get a plane ticket, and if I travel, I must do it with my wife and our son too, so it is too much money that we cannot pay. I let my daughter's mother take her to another country because, like every father, I want her to have better life opportunities. I don't think that makes me a bad father, but I guess the minds that have always lived in privilege don't understand. The last time I could afford some tickets was for my daughter to come to the wedding. Not all of us have the privilege of paying for a plane flight. I've been thinking a lot, and, in fact, I'm the OP because of the way I treated my wife. Even if most of the comments agreed with me, I don't think it was right to say that to the woman I love, even though I was angry. I apologized to her for what I said and the way I said it, but I told her that I don't like it when she ignores me and gives me the cold shoulder when I try to talk about our issues, and the fact that she denied the familiarity between our son and daughter was just cruel. She apologized for it and said she was angry and said things she regretted. I made it clear to her that Anna is coming because no one can forbid any of my children to live with me, not only morally but legally. I am totally obligated to give my daughter and son a house. She tried to argue, but I asked her how she would feel if we divorced and my new girlfriend refused to let our son live with me, just because she didn't sign up for it. I asked her if she would appreciate a man who abandons his children for a woman more than a man who cares about his children. If she would feel confident knowing that she is married to a man who abandons his children that easily. My wife said no, that obviously she knows how much I care about our children and hates the kind of men who abandon their kids, that she knew she wanted to have a child with me because she saw how, even though my daughter was so far away, I made video calls to her every day and we always help each other with things around the house. Then I asked her why she rejects the idea of my daughter being here, and she admitted being jealous of Anna. It is something that I have noticed in the past. For example, for one of my daughter's birthdays, I sent money to her mother to buy her a dress that was quite expensive, and my wife just said, "I guess you will buy our son something just as expensive." It was my mistake to let those comments pass and think they were just a weird joke. She said that she doesn't want my daughter to come and take time away from our son. That bothered me, and I told her that if we had 2 children, my time would also be divided, and that as a father, I can give the same attention to both. Changing our routine doesn't have to be a negative thing, and she knows that Anna is not a problem teenager. We talked a lot, and I explained to her that I just want to make everything work for both of us. I apologized if I made her feel bad with the way I treated her, and I told her that I want to really hear what things are bothering her so we can understand each other better. We agreed to have better dialogue and communication about these kinds of things. My wife admitted that her jealousy is wrong and feels embarrassed about it, but it's how she feels, and she feels awful for feeling like that. I told her that feeling isn't right, being jealous of my daughter isn't right, and I told her that it would be okay to start going to the psychologist if we want to fix this, because I'm not going to let my daughter live in a place where she doesn't feel loved. My wife accepted after talking about it a lot these days, and she wants to work on herself about that because she doesn't like feeling like that about a little girl and knows it's wrong. My wife and daughter always had a nice treatment when I made video calls with Anna. My wife usually talks a little but not that much. I think my mistake was not offering my wife to make video calls alone with Anna, like Anna does with my toddler sometimes. My daughter really likes my wife and calls her auntie, even if they don't know each other too well, so I don't want her to know how my wife really feels about her. I offered my wife to teach her how to play the same video game I play with my daughter so they can play together and get to know each other more. I know Anna would love that. They both have a lot of same interests. She accepted and said she loves me and wants to try it for me and for our toddler. If I leave my wife, I would be breaking my son's house. He's my baby too, and the last thing I want is letting adult matters affect him. I don't want to do that, and I love this woman. I want this to work, and I'm going to do my part for it. But the first moment she treats my daughter badly, I will end things with her, and I clarified that to her, and she was right with that and promised me to work on this. I still haven't confirmed anything to Anna's mother about the date on which our daughter can come, since I need to fix the room for her first, and I want my wife and little girl to get to know each other better. Talking about it with my psychologist, he told me that the best thing is always to get them closer little by little before Anna comes to live here. This last 4 days, my wife and Anna have been talking longer, and I told Anna that we could teach my wife how to play with us. Anna feels really comfortable talking with my wife, and they started talking about random things, which I feel out of because I don't understand about the things they talk about. But I'm pretty glad to see that they actually have things to talk about. I suppose a lot of people are going to call me an idiot for not divorcing my wife, because that was what most of the comments told me. But it's not all that simple as, yeah, we argued, so let's get divorced in a 50-50 custody. And I personally think it's been better for us to have spoken up like mature people instead of just getting divorced. Seeing that my wife has opened up to me and is trying to work things out, I prefer to give this a second chance and hope that she can see my daughter as her friend and even as her family if she allows it to herself. Your wife is going to treat your daughter badly. No one can read the future to say that, but I can work to make that future not happen. In the meantime, I prefer to maintain a positive approach, since my wife has never behaved badly with my daughter, and my daughter knows that if she feels uncomfortable, she knows she can talk about it with her mom, stepdad, or me, as we always teach her to talk to us about anything that makes her uncomfortable. Anna has a sharp tongue, so I doubt she'll stay quiet if my wife makes any comments that make her uncomfortable. I'm not going to force them to be best friends. I want them both to flow on their own. I'm also not going to use my daughter as a free babysitter, as many in the comments suggested as a supposed solution, and both she and her brother can live in this house as long as they want. Edit. In the previous post, several people said that my wife also made a post here, but it's false. She doesn't use this site. Edit 2. I don't understand why, but I've been getting a lot of notifications from that bot from a Redditor who thinks I need help and private spam messages from different accounts created literally today. I really don't know who's doing this and I don't understand what's the fun of annoying like that. Just block me. Relevant comments where OP has replied. Commenter. If your wife doesn't get over her jealousy, though, you're gonna have to make a choice. Hopefully, since she took ownership of how awful what she said was, she'll become better. OP. Yes. I made it clear to my wife that my decision will always be to protect my children from any person or situation. So if her jealousy returns, there will be no third chance. Commenter. Do you plan on leaving your daughter alone with your wife? P. For now, they have video calls with me. If my daughter wants to have video calls only with my wife, then they will have video calls alone. My daughter is smart and has a sharp tongue. If she feels uncomfortable with anything my wife does, she will tell me or her mother or stepfather about it. Commenter. I meant when she comes to stay with you, would you feel comfortable with leaving your wife alone with your daughter? OP. If my wife continues to improve her behavior and continues to be open to having a close relationship with my daughter, yes. The ideal is that, as I said in the post, that is precisely the reason why they are making video calls together, so that not only me, but also that they feel comfortable with each other when they live together. Commenter. Just because she's okay doing video calls with your daughter and being nice to her doesn't mean she's going to be the same when your daughter is in her home, especially when she doesn't want her there. OP. And it doesn't mean she'll treat her badly either. Neither you nor I know the future, and we could assume all night about what will happen. I prefer to think about the best for all the members of my family and trust that my wife wants to improve for herself and others with professional help. Commenter. Wife needs to know she can talk to you if she's uncomfortable. This probably won't end well. OP. My wife knows she can talk to me about whatever she wants. As I said in the post, she has opened up to me about what she really thinks, and we've been having a sincere dialogue. Update 2. June 23, 2024. I didn't really think about updating again, but I remembered that I have the account and I thought, why not? Since I have free time at this moment while I take care of my toddler, my daughter and my wife's relationship is going very well. They both make video calls to watch some series together that they both like. They have even started to have inside jokes that I don't understand, but I think that's something good. Although to be honest, now I feel a little left out just joking. My wife has been going to the psychologist, and me too. I want both of us to get better together to work on her insecurities and problems, because she knows that feeling jealous of my daughter is not good at all. And a few weeks ago she talked to my daughter about her feelings towards her and apologized. My daughter was quite surprised to learn that my wife felt this way, but accepted the apology and told her that she understands her. I left them talking alone that day so they have privacy, and after that they have had a closer bond. My wife said that my daughter told her that she will always respect someone who is sincere and wants to be a better person. In the previous post, many said that I decided to bring my daughter without talking about it with my wife before, but that's literally what I did. I never confirmed anything to the mother of my daughter until I spoke with my wife. I was never the partner of my daughter's mother, by the way. Many comments mentioned her as my ex-wife, but we were never anything. The talk about bringing my daughter back was paused because I wanted them to know each other better before living all together. But my wife started to talk about how she wants to decorate the bedroom and rejected all my ideas because they're too boring for a girl. So she's having fun redecorating the room with our toddler, who's really happy to see his sister in person. We still didn't arrange the date because my daughter's mother has to talk with her high school for the problems there and everything, and I have to prepare everything here too. But all is going well, step by step. Update 3. September 12, 2024. Hello. I just wanted to have one last update before deleting the account, since I don't see the point of continuing to have it. Haha. My daughter has been living with us for weeks now. My wife and she get along well. Her little brother adores her, and they can finally spend time together in person. He's really excited to have her home now. My wife has been working a lot on herself, and I have noticed how much she changed in a good way and how her relationship with my daughter is good. I noticed it especially when we went to pick up my daughter at the airport, and my wife was very excited to see her. They had been watching movies together online for months. She is no longer jealous of my daughter, and although it is a process that takes time, I know that she is making an effort. My daughter has not started school here, so she will have to wait until next year. Anyway, we decided to bring her now, since in a few months the tickets will be much more expensive. It was my wife, the one who told me that, and that she felt ready to spend time in person with her. I was really happy to hear her say that. I didn't expect her to already feel ready to tell me that. My daughter lived in a country in Asia. Although it was a really beautiful and safe country, it was very difficult for her to adapt, and their bullying is something very serious, much more so towards her who had so much difficulty with the language. Sometimes she obviously misses her mom, but they text a lot. I try to spend as much time as I can with her so that she doesn't miss her mother and stepfather too much. I also take her to see our relatives, and she has met my wife's family as well. But in general, I know that she feels happy here, and she has told me that she missed her grandparents, uncles, and cousins. The whole family is very happy that she is back here. My wife and I are doing great, and I've also worked on myself by going to therapy. Now we talk a lot whenever something bothers us or we have some discontent. I think the key is that we can communicate even if they are dark thoughts. I know that she is a good person, and like everyone she has dark thoughts, but she is a good person because she works on improving herself, and I'm doing that too. I love her, and I know she's a good mother who wouldn't treat my daughter badly. I like to take care of our children, take care of them, clean and cook for them. Although sometimes I find it hard to understand that my daughter now does all that by herself and I don't have to do it. Haha. But she is still small in my eyes, just like her brother. Anyway, I'm sorry if it's a boring update and everyone expected me to divorce my wife, but things are like this. Luckily, we are starting to solve our problems. They now have a relationship of friends, and I like that if they are happy like that. Now on to the next story. Story 5. Mom forced me to give my apartment to my entitled, pregnant sister after my fiancé passed away and told me I wouldn't need so much space anymore. This is about my super entitled mother and my pregnant younger sister, and how they are blaming me for something that I really don't think is my fault. But everyone else in my family is hating on me since they think that I'm being selfish. I am 25, male, and my sister is 22 and 6 months pregnant. We were raised by our single mother since our biological father passed away when I was 14 years old. Life was tolerable when he was alive because both my sister and I had parents to have our backs. My sister had my mother and I had my dad. My mom had a very clear favorite, and it was my sister. I wouldn't say that I was my dad's favorite, but he could clearly see that my mom always favored my sister over me, and he would try to balance it out by defending me. After he passed away, I had my grandparents, but it was not the same because they did not live with us. My dad's parents had passed away when he was really young, and we were not particularly close to anybody from his family. My mom's parents often visited us, and sometimes I would even spend the weekend and stuff with them, but we weren't living together. My mom had made it very clear to her parents that she wanted to live on her own with her kids, and it was fine with her for them to visit occasionally, but she didn't want to live with them together as a family. I guess it has something to do with the fact that she wanted to be independent and free, although I don't really know how exactly you can call yourself independent when you're still relying on your parents for money. My dad was a vet and he made a decent income, so my mother never bothered to work after she got married and had us. However, after his passing, she took up a job in sales that my grandpa got her into through his connections. I thought that she was able to afford to raise us all on her own for a really long time, but it was just recently that I found out that my grandpa had been funding her all along. I don't know how she found the audacity to tell them that she didn't want them living with her under the same roof while still taking money from them shamelessly. Anyway, I guess you can tell that my mother didn't exactly treat me well after my father passed away, and I always felt supremely emotionally neglected and isolated, but I was not allowed to leave either. I could have just moved in with my grandparents and stayed with them, but my mom would never have entertained that idea. We would often fight when I would call her out on her behavior because all her affection was reserved for my sister and not for me. But even during the fights, whenever I would tell her that I was going to move in with my grandparents, she would start emotionally manipulating me. I was really young, so I ended up falling for it and always stayed back. It was really difficult because not only was my mother biased toward my sister, but my sister herself was also quite a brat and always tried to take advantage of it. Anything that happened, I would end up getting thrown under the bus and she would get away with whatever she did. We were treated incredibly differently, and that's why, I guess, she turned out to be a very different person from me as well. I was quite relieved when I started working at my first job after I graduated from college because that would mean that I would get my own money and then I wouldn't have to live with my mom anymore. As soon as I had saved enough money, I was out of there. Since then, I've been away from my family and it's been great. For the past 2 years, I had been living with my fiancée, Maria. She and I met in college, started dating, and we started living together 2 years back. She was pretty much the love of my life, and we got engaged about 3 weeks ago. But unfortunately, I lost her just a couple of days after our engagement. She passed away due to a freak accident at work, which I don't want to get into, but it was just really sad and unexpected, and I still haven't been able to get over it. I don't think I'll ever be able to move on because I'm certain that she was my soulmate, and I lost her as soon as we decided that we were going to spend the rest of our lives together. It's been very tough for me personally. My mom had been very considerate of me and was checking up on me every day after the funeral, which I thought was really nice. I didn't realize that she was just building up for a huge ask. 1 week ago, she visited me and started making some small talk to check up on me, and then she got to the point and told me that since Maria was gone now, she wanted to ask me if I would be willing to let my pregnant sister move into my apartment. My sister isn't married. She got pregnant with her boyfriend, and so far, her boyfriend has been living separately with his parents and she has been living in our house with our mother. But now, since they were getting closer to the birth of their baby, they wanted to start living together because it would be more convenient. However, she did not want to go out looking for apartments because she already had a place in mind, and it was my apartment since it was just the perfect distance from her boyfriend's workplace, and I live in a nice neighborhood, but the rent is still not unaffordable. It's a steal deal if I'm being honest, and I understand why she wants this apartment. She had been eyeing it ever since she and her boyfriend had a talk and decided that they wanted to move in together and had been planning on speaking to me about it. But then Maria passed away and she didn't know if it was the right time to talk to me or not. However, it had recently just occurred to my mother and her that since Maria was now gone, I had a lot of space in the apartment, and if I wanted to, I could stay there until I found a new place, but they really wanted to move in as soon as possible. The way my mother put it, it was just taken for granted that I was going to say yes and accept their offer to let them have the apartment, and she made it sound like they were doing me a favor by allowing me to stay in my own apartment while I was grieving instead of sending me out to look for new places to move into. It was bad enough that they hadn't even bothered to come speak to me about it themselves, but had sent my mother to do their dirty work. It was even worse that they had decided that they were going to make it seem like it was a valid proposition because I had a lot of space in my apartment as my fiancé had passed away. It was wild and insensitive, and I can't imagine anybody who was in their right mind saying things like this. I was shocked when my mom started talking to me about it because I had honestly believed that she was looking out for me out of concern. But it was then that I realized she had only been checking up on me because she was building up to this. I was really angry, but I decided not to let it show. So very calmly, I had just asked her why exactly my sister and her boyfriend hadn't bothered to come speak to me herself. My mom told me that her reason was that she was exhausted and pregnant and didn't feel like having such a heavy discussion with me because she knew that it was not going to be easy for either of us to make this ask. When I asked my mother why it had been taken for granted that I was simply going to accept their offer, let them have the apartment and not say anything, she had to think about it for a while. But then she told me that she and my sister had just figured that I would want to move out soon enough since this place is where I used to live with Maria, and it would probably have a lot of memories associated with that time, which would be hard for me while I was mourning her. I could tell that my mother had just come up with that explanation on the spot, and the real reason they had assumed that I would say yes was simply because they were just that entitled. Anyway, after I got my answers, I kept my cool and I told my mom that I was not willing to take their offer and I was going to stay in this apartment because I liked this place. Surprisingly, she did not argue and just left after that. I made the mistake of thinking that my mom and my sister would let it go, but they did not because the next day, both of them showed up instead of just my mother. They told me that they realized that I was still grieving my fiancé, but my sister really wanted to move in with her boyfriend and my apartment was just the perfect place. She herself told me that she had come all the way to talk to me even though she was mentally and physically exhausted all the time, just because she wanted to move in here. And she told me that she didn't even want me to move out. She would be perfectly fine with sharing the apartment. Not even for a second did it occur to them that they were being incredibly insensitive, and they just kept talking about how desperate she was to live together with her boyfriend to see how it would be to stay under the same roof because they intended on getting married after the baby came along and so they needed this apartment and my help. She also kept playing the pregnant card, which is funny because I literally just lost my fiancé and yet that didn't seem to mean anything to them. I didn't even feel like fighting with them, so I just told my sister that she was welcome to come stay here with her boyfriend, and I was going to give it up within a few days. I had spoken to the landlord and ended my lease and moved out with all my stuff so they could have the place to themselves. I didn't do it out of the kindness of my heart. I just did it because I knew that they would keep finding ways to bother me until I agreed, and I didn't want that. I could have taken measures against it, but I didn't have the energy for it, to be honest, and more importantly, I intended on ending the lease in a couple of weeks anyway because I planned on moving to a different state for work after I had lost Maria. It didn't make sense for me to continue staying here, and I started applying for jobs outside of the state. I could have been vindictive and petty and not let her have the apartment after I ended my lease, but it didn't make sense to act that way, especially when I was going through so much myself. After I moved out, I had thought about staying in a hotel, but I had way too much stuff with me, so I decided to head over to my grandpa's place. My grandma passed away 3 years ago after being sick for a very long time, and since then, my grandpa has also been living on his own. He had sold his old house and bought a new one in the suburbs, which was a little distance away from the city, and it was just perfect for me. He also knew what I was going through, and unlike my mother, he had been checking up on me after Maria's passing without any ulterior motives. However, he didn't know about my mom and my sister and the way they talked me into giving up my apartment for my pregnant sister and her boyfriend. He only found out about it when I showed up at his door with all my stuff and I explained everything that happened. I genuinely and honestly did not have an intention of stirring up any drama. I was just casually sharing it with him because ultimately, it had been my decision to give up the apartment, and I had even explained that to him. I had told him about my intentions of moving away and that until then, I planned on staying with him because I knew that he would be fine with it. Personally, I had found it really offensive that my mom and my sister were pushing me to give up the apartment to my sister just because she was pregnant, but I didn't think about retaliating in any way since it just didn't seem worth it. But he was just outraged because he couldn't believe that they could be so insensitive since I had told him about the comment that they had made about the apartment having a lot of space now since Maria was gone. I didn't expect him to do anything, mostly because I didn't think it was a big deal since I myself had given up the apartment of my own volition. But my grandpa told me that it was a big deal since it just went to show just how insensitive they were when it came to other people and how they did not care about anybody apart from themselves. I guess I just didn't get enough about it because at this moment, nothing seems bigger to me than losing my fiancée. But my grandpa decided to take things into his own hands and teach them a lesson. He knew that I was not going to do anything about it, so he dealt with matters himself. And his way of doing it was to cut off all their funds. And that's how I found out that not only had my mother been counting on my grandfather for money in the past when she had been raising us, but even now she continued to take money from him to maintain her lifestyle because she couldn't afford it herself. After I told my grandfather everything regarding the situation with my mom and my sister, he told me that he was going to handle it, but I didn't ask him what that meant. I just assumed that he was going to talk to my mom, but then I started receiving countless messages from my mom and my sister calling me heartless and saying that I did this on purpose and stuff like that. So then I was forced to ask my grandpa what he had done, and he told me that all he had done was block their cards. That's literally all that he had done, and of course he had also sent them a message that he would not be sending the money anymore. I was very confused because I didn't even know that they had been taking money from him, and that's when I found out finally after so many years that my mom hadn't spent a single penny on raising us, and it had all been my grandparents. All the money that she made from her work went into her life. Her makeup, her clothes, her hair, and her parties and her friends and her vacations. We were raised entirely on the money that our grandparents contributed, and my father had left us some money before he passed away since he had been sick and knew that he was not going to make it, so he had written out a will. But my grandparents had decided that they were going to support us for as long as they could, and that the fund that my dad had left for us would remain untouched until we were 18, which was a good call by them because otherwise my mom probably would have wasted all that money on herself as well. My grandparents had both been surgeons back in the day before he retired, so he was quite well off and money was not an issue for him, which was lucky because even though I had been able to do something for myself and was independent enough, he still had to support my mom and my sister from their lives until now. In spite of all the terrible behavior, he had unconditionally helped them out financially because he wanted to be taken care of and couldn't abandon them. But now he thought that he had done enough for them, and it was about time that they did something for themselves because it was only going to enable them more and make them more entitled and cruel. And I guess he was right because so far that's the exact effect that had had. So I really didn't feel bad that he had cut off the funds for my mom and my sister, because after everything that he had told me, how he had been supporting them for so long and how my mother had led me to think that she had been spending money on raising me just so she could manipulate me more easily. Manipulate me when I was younger. I thought it was well-deserved, and I simply blocked their numbers and accounts so they wouldn't be able to contact me. They already had the apartment, and now they had a chance at making something of their lives and being independent. But instead of taking that chance, they decided to make me the bad guy here and posted a bunch of stuff on social media and tagged the rest of the family to let them know that apparently I had instigated my grandpa against them and had brainwashed and manipulated him into cutting them out of his life. It was all a bunch of lies. I had done nothing of the sort, and they knew it because my grandpa had made it very clear to them that I hadn't told him anything. This was something that he was doing for his own conscience. Anyway, that did not seem to matter to them, and they went off on social media about me. They said a narrative about me and started pushing it. And of course, my idiotic relatives started to believe it. So now everybody's messaging me to tell me that I'm being a horrible person by bothering a pregnant girl, and they think that if I didn't want them to have the apartment, I should have just said so instead of letting them have it and then manipulating my grandpa against them to get back at them. I'm already coping with the loss of my fiancé. This is the last thing that I need, and I've been having a hard time dealing with all the hate from my family. But because of the overwhelming number of messages that I have been receiving, I just feel like I might have done something wrong and that the best way to deal with this would be to apologize and to get my grandpa to start funding them again or something. The only snag that I'm hitting is that it just doesn't sound right and neither does it feel right, but I've been having a hard time figuring out what I should do because of how messy the situation is for me right now. So, am I the asshole for sharing an incident with my grandpa which made him cut off the funds that he had been providing my mom and my pregnant sister with? Update 1. Alright, first of all, I just want to thank everyone who responded to my original post so much. Thank you for letting me know that I'm not the one at all and I don't need to feel sorry. And thank you for offering condolences. It means the world to me. I would also like to explain certain things before I get into the rest of the update. So, first of all, I did not give up the apartment because I was being a doormat. I just didn't want to fight with them. I think people need to realize that things are not always going to work as they should be, and right now you guys need to understand that my brain is not functioning like it should be. If Maria had still been alive, I probably wouldn't have reacted that way, but I just felt like it was not worth it to fight with them, and I let them have the apartment. I could have been petty about it and ended the lease without putting them in touch with my landlord, but I didn't even have the energy or mental capacity to be doing stuff like that. I just wanted to get it over so that I wouldn't have to interact with them again, and I hope you guys understand where I'm coming from. Also, about my grandparents, I would just like to defend them for a bit and say that they were always there for me when we were kids, and it's not like they were bad people who were always on my mom's side. In fact, that was hardly ever the case. It's not like my grandparents didn't know how my mom would treat me or that they didn't try to fix it. They would always sympathize with me, tell me that I was free to live with them if I wanted to, and fight with my mom for my sake, but nothing ever changed. They knew that they couldn't fight for my custody because that would make the situation worse, and maybe they would end up not even being able to see me if they tried to do something like that. Besides, it wasn't guaranteed that they would end up getting my custody because I was only being emotionally neglected and there was no proof of it either. My mother was unwilling to let me go, and at the time I used to believe that she was raising me with her own money and was working hard to do so I owed it to her to stay with her at the very least if that's what she wanted. And yeah, I hope you guys understand that my grandparents tried their very best to be there for me. As for why my grandpa had been supporting my mother financially and even my sister until recently and had never told me about it, it's kind of complicated. My grandparents only had my mother. She did not have other siblings. She had been spoiled rotten as a kid by my grandparents, which they take full responsibility for, but they had just figured that she would grow out of it as she grew older. It did not happen, and they tried every single way to fix that, but she just kept going back to her old entitled ways every time. Eventually, they just gave up and hoped that marriage and motherhood would make it better, but even then, it hardly helped. My dad was a bit of a positive influence, so she mellowed down for a bit, but after his passing, she was right back. My grandparents did not want to lose her because losing her would also mean losing access to us, their grandkids. They couldn't afford it when we were younger, and as we grew older and more independent, they still found it more and more difficult to cut my mother out of their lives and stop funding her and stuff. So, they would fight about it constantly, but they just couldn't say no to her because of how attached they were to her. He admitted that he kind of had been a doormat, but it was his daughter that he was talking about, and he didn't know how to explain it, but he just felt weak when it came to her. However, after what had happened recently with me, he decided that he couldn't enable this kind of behavior anymore. The reason he hadn't told me about how he had been funding my mom and my sister for so long was because he didn't want me to have a low opinion of him. So yeah, that was it. It was a much-needed discussion that my grandpa and I just needed to get into, and now that we are done with it, we have decided that we don't really need to respond to the rest of the family. We don't owe them anything, not even a clarification. The few people who have bothered to reach out to me personally and ask me what's going on, I have responded to them, and that's it. That's where I'm going to draw the line. I'm not going to post any statement to defend myself because I really am not interested. I just want to heal, want to live my life, and not be bogged down by these meaningless relationships with people who don't even care about me. They just want to gossip and act righteous. I had said in my original post that I wanted to move out of the state and work outside, and I've been contacted by a few companies, so I'm in the talks with them, and soon enough I think I'll be leaving. I do intend on coming back occasionally so I can visit my grandpa, Maria's parents, and a few friends, but for the most part, I'm done with this place. Update 2. Hey, it has been 3 weeks since I last posted here, and I just wanted to let you guys know that I have been hired by one of the companies that reached out to me, and in a few weeks, I will be moving away. I've been staying with my grandpa and things have been good. The hype around that whole string of posts that my mom and my sister had put up has died down, and nobody from the family has contacted me anymore. I guess the few people who knew the truth after talking to me personally have made sure that other people got to know as well, because a lot of people have apologized and a lot of people haven't, but it doesn't matter to me. In a few weeks, I'll be gone, and here is where I would like to end it. I have heard from a couple of my friends and cousins that my sister has still been constantly badmouthing me for bothering her while she was pregnant and having no mercy, probably for attention, but she was put in her place by most of the people she had been trying to get attention from. They called her out on her hypocrisy, how she was trying to seek sympathy because she apparently wanted to make herself sound like the victim here. But she was the one who had been insensitive and heartless enough to approach me to ask to give up my apartment, especially knowing that I've been going through a lot after the loss of my fiancé. A lot of people have told me that they are on my side and they are not going to be speaking to my mom or my sister anymore, and I really appreciate it. I appreciate the fact that there are still nice and kind people who would stand up for the right thing like them, and of course also my grandpa. He has been telling me that it has been really difficult for him to know that he's probably not going to be able to speak to my mother for a really long time, but he knows that it has to be done, and he's being really brave about it. Now, I have to be brave too and make my mark in a new city. I just really hope that Maria will be proud of me and how I'm dealing with all of this now. Update 3. Hey guys, almost 3 months have passed since I moved away from home and have been working outside of my state. Initially, it was quite hard for me to deal with this, and I had second thoughts about what I was doing several times. I just wanted to go home to the comfort of everything that I knew, but I decided to power through since the company that had hired me was offering good pay. Also, I wanted to keep myself occupied with work so I would be able to slowly heal from everything that happened. I stayed in touch with my friends and my grandpa and even Maria's parents, and occasionally I would even go back to see them. I still do, and initially, I would find it very difficult to come back to work, but I always made my way back and decided to fight. And in short, I did not quit and I made it work. And now I'm getting promoted to a higher position and I couldn't be happier. I obviously still really miss Maria a lot. I miss her every single day, and I think I definitely could be a lot happier if she was still with me. But I know that she's with me in spirit and she's looking after me in whichever way she can, and I'm really grateful for it. I know that she would be proud of me today, knowing that I'm doing everything in my power to make a better life for myself. I'm going to live out all the dreams that we had dreamt together and make sure that I live my life to the fullest since she hadn't been able to. I'm going to make her proud and yeah, just do my best in life. Thank you for checking up on me. Now on to the next story. Story 6. Family bullied me throughout my life and compared me to my sister because I was ugly. But now I'm getting married to a rich man, and my family is begging me to invite them to my wedding. I, 23F, was born into a middle-class family consisting of my parents and my elder sister, Kelly, 25F. My parents were academicians, so it was obvious for them to have a lot of expectations from Kelly and me. Kelly was an excellent student, an extremely high-achieving individual with the looks of a Greek goddess. I, on the other hand, wasn't as well-performing academically, not as good-looking and a bit overweight, but great at art from a very young age. Everyone who says looks don't matter in society has never actually been an ugly-looking person because I faced discrimination because of it, even from my own family. I considered it fine when my parents scolded me about my studies because I understood the motive, but they always ended up commenting on my looks and how I couldn't even pull off the dumb blonde stereotype if I failed at everything else, constantly comparing me to Kelly. Kelly didn't say much, but I could feel her gaze on me whenever we walked together to school, like she wanted to disappear rather than be seen with me, even as a child. At every family event, whenever my relatives tried to praise me for my achievements, my parents always interrupted and made jokes about how bad I looked by comparing my face to that of animals. They got some uncomfortable laughs since they were the hosts, but the damage it did to me was irreparable. I always thought it was my fault that I was ugly, which led to me developing an inferiority complex. I rarely talked to anyone or participated in any activities at school because of the fear of being judged. One day, my school counselor noticed me sitting in an empty class drawing and suggested I participate in the upcoming poster-making contest. I said no, and she decided to get to the root of it by talking to me. She found out about my issue and called my parents the same day, asking them to get me to a psychologist since their constant criticism wasn't helping. To avoid being called negligent, they agreed to enroll me in therapy. The next few years were good, with me finally being able to build my self-worth with the help of my therapist. However, this didn't change the snarky remarks I used to get from my parents. They made fun of my looks, and when I showed my disapproval, they told me to get a sense of humor. Maybe I decided from that point on that I would move out of their house as soon as I turned 18. Finally, my 18th birthday arrived, but my parents didn't forget to make it all about Kelly. Kelly got a modeling gig. Kelly got into a very well-known college. Kelly is the best, was all I could hear during the party. It was only my maternal aunt who stepped up and reminded everybody that it was my birthday and maybe we should talk about me instead. Everyone agreed except my family, who didn't like my aunts intervening and stayed quiet during the rest of the party, even when it was time to sing Happy Birthday. After the party was over, I went to my room and cried. The next day, I called a friend who helped me find a tiny apartment, and I had money saved from my part-time job, so finances weren't an issue. My moving out wasn't an issue for anyone in my family. Forget about asking the reason. They didn't even realize I was leaving for good until I started loading my friend's car with boxes full of my stuff. They didn't say much, just a final remark that with me gone, their house would finally look chic. Kelly was also going to leave for college this year and very unexpectedly gave me a book she liked as a farewell gift. I studied and worked extremely hard that year, realizing my passion for software engineering, and fortunately got into a very reputable college for it. I hadn't talked to my parents since moving out, so I decided to go and invite them to my graduation. I reached home to a locked door. I called them, and after multiple calls, when they finally picked up, they told me they wouldn't be able to attend my graduation because they were out of the country on vacation. I thought they might change their minds upon hearing about my admission and offer to pay my tuition as they did for Kelly, but all I got was, "Oh, that's great. Good for you." I cut the call and went straight to my aunt's to invite her to my graduation instead. We talked, and I cried a little about my family's distant behavior, and she promised to be there for me. From then on, I moved to another city the next month to attend college. 6 years later, I was working for a reputable company as a software engineer and freelancing as a graphic designer. My relationship with my family had been almost non-existent during these past years. I used to only get invited to big family events, only to be made fun of most of the time, so I decided to stop going after a year. My aunt noticed this and invited me to her house for all the holidays, so it's safe to say I didn't really miss my family. The company I worked at was very chill, with no blatant hierarchy among the employees. Once, our company needed someone to redesign their logo, so I volunteered. I was asked to work with a guy from the office I had never met before. Let's call him Rob. Rob and I worked on that project for almost 3 months and became great friends. We started to hang out after work and realized it was something more and finally began our relationship by the end of our project. I learned that he was actually the CEO and founder of the company, which didn't make much difference because to me he was just Rob. After a year of dating, He finally proposed to me extravagantly on a trip to Paris. I was elated, and my aunt was the first to hear about it. The next day, I emailed my family about this and made a Facebook post to inform everyone else in my extended family. Surprisingly, I got a call from my mother, the third time in almost 7 years. She sounded very excited and congratulated me, proceeding to invite me for a private family dinner the following weekend. I thought about it and said yes to her. The dinner wasn't at my house but at a very fancy restaurant. I met my parents and my sister, Kelly, who had been between jobs after college. My parents were trying to act very nicely toward me, but I kept my guard up. They asked me about the wedding, and I told them I had no plans yet. This is when they broke character, and I finally realized why they wanted to meet me. They began begging me to include them in my wedding. I was taken aback by this and clearly told them it would be my call after I decided, and that they had no right to make demands after being absent for almost 7 years and showing up when they needed something. They got quiet and I asked for the bill. I thought we'd go Dutch, but I was then informed that they expected me to pay the entire bill because I was now getting married to this rich guy. I was so done with them at that point that I paid the bill and left without even saying goodbye. I talked to Rob about this, who assured me the wedding would be as I liked, with only the people I'd like to have on my special day. From that day on, I started getting constant calls from my parents, pressuring me to invite them and make them a part of the wedding since we were family and family came first. I was extremely reluctant at first because of what happened at the last dinner, but on their repeated apologies for their behavior toward me during my childhood and so far, I decided to act like the bigger person and give them a second chance. I told them that Dad could walk me down the aisle, while my mom and Kelly could be my bridesmaids, and they were more than fine with it. Things started to go south when they began shopping for the wedding. They got the most expensive stuff from stores and expected me to pay for it. I told them very clearly that I'd send them references to look for and that I wouldn't be paying for any of it. They tried to persuade me by pretending to be nice, but I didn't fall for it and said no. 5 months before the wedding, Rob and I decided to have an engagement announcement first in my city and determine the guest list based on that, so I invited my family and a good chunk of my relatives to this engagement party. It was well known that since Rob was a CEO, a lot of distinguished guests would be invited to every event. My parents were just happy to be included at this point. Everything was going according to plan until I got a call from my aunt one day, who said she wanted to talk in person ASAP. I met her in the coming days, and she told me that my family was planning something against me. She said my mother knew very well about my dislike for them and Kelly and was planning to pull a stunt at my engagement announcement. So, their financial situation had deteriorated after they sent Kelly to college because my dad retired. My mom had been the sole breadwinner of the family, and with Kelly doing nothing after her graduation, they were in extreme need of money to maintain their standing in society. Once they realized I had gotten engaged to a wealthy guy, they tried to patch things up with me in hopes that I would automatically become their ATM and give them money, realizing their situation. But once I shut down their efforts, they planned to take a rather cunning route. Their first plan was to get Kelly to be my maid of honor so that she could be set up with one of the groomsmen. That seemed far-fetched because I did not accept their antics and had control of my wedding, so they decided on something more sinister. They had gotten a cheap knockoff necklace online which they planned on showing me at the engagement party, claiming it was an original for Kelly. Once I was seen with the necklace, they'd put the necklace secretly in my bag and then create a scene of the necklace being stolen after finding it in my bag. They'd blame me for stealing it in front of everyone, and in compensation for it, maybe my fiancé could offer them some money, and I, out of guilt, would pay for their expenses and make Kelly my mo. I was shocked at my family's audacity and got a bit emotional. My aunt calmed me down and told me that she came to me as soon as she heard of this plan to warn me of my parents' intentions at the party and the action I wanted to take ahead. I thought about it a little and asked my aunt not to let them know that I knew about it because I was now planning to give it back to them. I told my aunt we could get another copy of the necklace and put it in my mom's bag after she put her piece into mine. There would be no bounds to her embarrassment after she found the necklace she blamed me for stealing in her bag, and maybe that would lead them to reconsider their decision to plan it to embarrass me in the first place. My aunt approved of the plan and was immediately on board. The day of my engagement party arrived. Everything was going according to plan, with my mother being completely unaware of my knowledge of her plan. She showed me the necklace and a few minutes later gathered my dad and Kelly and began screaming that her expensive necklace was lost. I looked in my bag and immediately took out the necklace, giving it to my aunt discreetly. Then I went to my mom and asked what was up with her. She blamed the necklace being lost on me because I had it last and wanted me to check my bag. I pretended to calm her down and asked her to check her bag before blaming anyone else and snatched her bag from her. I then opened it and showed everyone the necklace. My family was dumbfounded, with everyone now talking about them in whispers. Before they could say anything, I very loudly reminded them that their tactics of making me the cause of every issue like they did when I was young weren't going to work anymore, and that I might not have been as beautiful to look at as them, but I had much better values than them, and that's what mattered in the real world. They stayed quiet for the rest of the party and left early, all embarrassed. The next day, I saw quite a few voicemails on my phone from my parents and a few relatives, saying that I shouldn't have brought up the past after their continuous attempts to make amends to me, and that the blame for the necklace wasn't intentional but their character assassination by me looked extremely distasteful. Now that I think about it, embarrassing them was more than enough, and maybe I shouldn't have commented on their character because that leaves no difference between me and them. So, IDA for deliberately questioning my family's character after they tried to tarnish my reputation at my engagement party. Update 1. Thank you to everyone who weighed in and gave advice on my situation. A lot of comments talk about how I should cut my family off over this, but I digress because I haven't talked to them in years, but it never once crossed my mind to cut them off because they are my family after all. I showed my aunt this post and the comments, and she suggested that I talk to them honestly once if I wish to give our relationship a fair shot, which seems like a good plan. So, a week after the engagement party, I went to my parents' house for dinner. They hadn't contacted me after receiving no response from my side on their allegations of me embarrassing them. They were rather cold when I arrived and barely talked unless I brought something up. I sat them down and told them how I knew about their plan, after which the reason for the silence wasn't arrogance, but because they didn't have much to say. I blurted out all the things I had resented in them since my childhood as an honest attempt to get to know their point of view and rebuild our relationship. To my surprise, they were extremely sympathetic and apologized a lot for what they tried to do at my engagement party. Their apology felt genuine, but I couldn't trust them completely after the engagement party fiasco. Since the wedding was now close, I went to the boutique to see my dress and get any final alterations done. I had already planned to take my aunt with me but decided to also take my mom and sister in the spirit of building a new relationship. One thing I forgot to add before, I had lost a lot of weight during college, so I wasn't considered the ugly one anymore, or at least hadn't been called it so far. At the dress fitting, my aunt got emotional seeing me in the dress, but my mom and Kelly had extremely neutral reactions. I tried to ask them if they wanted to add something to the whole look and they said no, so I got out of the dress and got it packed. Suddenly, Kelly came to me with this extravagant-looking satin gown, suggesting that this should be my bridesmaid's dress. It was a very beautiful dress indeed, but once she looked at the price tag, she claimed they couldn't afford it and put it back on the rack. I didn't offer to pay for it then, but I decided to buy it for my mom and sister because they were a part of my wedding party, and we all left. The next day, I bought the dresses and gave them as gifts. A few days after our visit, my family was still politely imposing small wedding function details on me, like the color of the flowers, the guest list, or the events that would take place. It was a bit awkward at first, but I took a stand for myself and told them I'd ask them directly if I needed their input. This might not have sat right with them because what followed was an absolute train wreck. An hour or so after they left my house, I got a call from my mother. I picked it up, and after no response from her side, I realized she might have accidentally butt-dialed me. She and Kelly were at the bar, and just as I was about to hang up, I heard them talking about me. They made fun of my wedding dress, saying that I couldn't pull off something like that in 100 years and were amazed at how I could pull such a handsome and wealthy man when I wouldn't even be hired as a maid in his house. They continued to ridicule me, calling me an uptight B-word, and how they wished they had some way to access my wealth without ever seeing my face again. I had heard enough at that point, so I cut the call and had a breakdown immediately after. I couldn't believe how mean my mom and Kelly were, acting like textbook bullies. The next day, I called my aunt and told her everything. She came to my house, consoled me, and reminded me that I had the power in the situation and that she was always there backing my decision, no matter what. Fortunately, my phone recorder was on during that call, so I had proof of their conversation just in case they tried to deny it. I will have to make some tough decisions now, and not without appropriate revenge. Update 2. So, I guess you all were right about how I should have cut my family off when they attacked me at my engagement party, and now I am following through on that advice with some twists of my own. I had made up my mind to not include my mom and Kelly in the wedding party, but I still wanted to know my dad's stance on it all. I called and met him in person the day when Mom and Kelly were out shopping. I told him everything that happened at the boutique and on the call, but instead of taking my side, he began to remind me to not forget my place. I angrily asked him what he was talking about, and he said he was done walking on eggshells around me begging for monetary help when I should have offered it myself as soon as I learned about it. I told him he should have asked for it straight up, and if he expected me to understand everything happening with him without words, maybe he should have tried building a relationship instead of using me as a joke in family conversations and constantly comparing me to Kelly. He said I should remember they paid for me until I was 18 and I shouldn't forget that they were the reason I am here today talking so harshly about them. I was appalled by his statement and had the final realization that this family wasn't mine in the first place. They traumatized and sidelined me all through my childhood and came back running like dogs when they smelled money. I didn't say a word after that and left. I didn't get a call from anyone in my family in the next 2 days, which meant Dad hadn't told Mom and Kelly about our conversation and that I finally had time to devise a plan to expose them. In consultation with Rob and my aunt, I made a plan to throw a bachelorette party, inviting just my aunt, my mom, and Kelly. I'd throw the party at a private location, setting up cameras secretly and asking them to play Truth and Dare with me. In the game, I'd ask them questions about the things they were talking about on the call to expose their hypocrisy if they lied or the truth if they didn't lie. The next weekend, the bachelorette party took place. My mom and Kelly were extremely excited about it being a fully paid experience and got extremely drunk. They were acting very nicely toward me, which meant they were unaware that I knew everything. So I started asking them questions with my aunt sitting beside me as proof. The first few questions weren't alarming, but as soon as they realized what I was asking them about was a private conversation between them, they sobered up pretty quickly and kept lying and trying to deflect from the conversation. After some time, when they did not answer my questions directly, I took out the phone and played the audio of their conversation for them. They both shut up nicely after that and a few moments later showed their real side. They started badmouthing me, saying that I was never the one who should have gotten such a good life considering how Kelly was the prodigy of their family and how they knew I wasn't one of them since I was born, proving it further by playing games instead of helping them financially. I did feel bad hearing that, but I stayed strong and informed them that they were being recorded and that if they didn't want the video to go on Facebook, they should make peace with the fact that they wouldn't be part of my wedding anymore. I told them I honestly wished I could disinvite them from the wedding, but that could raise suspicions about our relationship and I did not want any attention on them, so I was sparing them the humiliation. I also told them that once I was done with the wedding, I would not see their faces again. I reminded them that they should also not associate with me to get privileges in the future and return the dresses I gifted them as soon as possible or pay for them. The mother-daughter duo was infuriated and immediately called a cab to leave. My aunt and I had the place to ourselves until the next day, so we enjoyed it to our fullest, considering it a celebration of the win against my family. I asked my aunt she would walk me down the aisle instead of my father, to which she cried first and then agreed. As of right now, the wedding is literally a month away, and I am waiting for Kelly to return the dresses because I know there is no way she and Mom can afford them. Update 3. I'm sorry for the late update and thank you to everyone who congratulated me on my wedding, which was the reason the update was this late. I thought things would go down quickly after I warned my family to stay low until my wedding, but that didn't happen. A week after the bachelorette, I still hadn't gotten the dresses I gifted my mom and Kelly, but I didn't want to stir any drama this close to the wedding, so I decided to deal with it later. That day itself, I got a call from my aunt asking me to check Facebook. My whole family had gone against me and written a huge 5-part Facebook post just ranting about how I had been torturing them since I got money. They made up a lot of stuff and even went as far as revealing my childhood mistakes, little mischiefs which happen with children, but were evil because I committed them. They ended the post by asking for everyone's help because I was blackmailing them for money. My aunt wrote some comments about how they were lying, but as expected, the comments in my favor were deleted. There were a lot of people who called my parents out for talking about my childhood so ruthlessly, to which their only reply was that they were the ones who had faced it all and didn't expect everyone to understand it. They doxed me by putting my number in the post, leading to a lot of calls from relatives trying to convince me and get an invite to my wedding. I showed Rob the post, who suggested we sue them for defamation and harassment, but I told him I didn't want anything to do with them anymore. I went berserk and released the videos of them calling me names and showing how they blatantly discriminated against me because I was ugly, along with my side of the explanation. I mentioned in the post itself that they were not invited to the wedding anymore and should pay me for the dresses I gave them as a gift, or they'd be hearing from my lawyer soon. A lot of people who were earlier supporting them soon switched sides after seeing the video and began bashing them instead. They thought I was bluffing about releasing the videos and tried to scare me into getting what they wanted, but I played the Uno reverse card, and they had nowhere to hide. They hadn't thought this through and were now in a major fix. I did get a few texts from my maternal grandma asking me to forgive them, but as soon as I told her she was free not to come to my wedding if she wanted to support my family, her stance changed too. The next weeks were extremely stressful, but I had planned everything very carefully, hiring security guards for my wedding venue as I expected them to show up, which they did. My dad was too high-headed to be a part of this, so it was just my mother and Kelly who wore the dresses and showed up like nothing had happened. Once they were denied entry, they began throwing a hissy fit before the important guests could come. Rob went out and warned them to leave or they would have to deal with cops for trespassing on private property. With nothing to spare, they decided to leave, but not before hurling curses at me as I watched from the window. The cherry on the cake was when they were leaving. Mom accidentally stepped on a sprinkler, activating it and ruining both her and Kelly's outfits. The wedding went peacefully after that, with my aunt walking me down the aisle and most people from my side actually apologizing to me for my family's behavior. I asked them to forget about it and enjoy the wedding, which everyone eventually did. Update 4. This will be the final update on the incident. So, I got back the dresses from Kelly and Mom via mail while I was on my honeymoon. They were ruined because of the sprinkler and all, but it wasn't about the dresses, it was about making a point. Rob still insisted on filing a case against my family for trying to defame me with lies, but I said no since they had already done themselves a lot of damage with their Facebook posts and my true bliss was in knowing that I wouldn't have a toxic family. My aunt is still the person I believe in the most, and now that I am pregnant, she could be the one grandma my child actually deserves. I haven't heard much about my family, just that my dad now has a drinking problem. My mom is still trying to defame me, and Kelly has left the city to start fresh and has tried to send me an apology text. I honestly don't care because they were the ones who threw away our relationship for petty reasons, and now that I am happier, I don't want to ruin my peace over fake apologies. Now on to the next story. Story 7. My sister stole my spotlight, trapped her boyfriend to have the first grandchild, and now expects me to raise her baby because she can't cope. In order to take my attention and have the first kid, my sister tricked her partner into getting pregnant. Now that she can't handle being a mother, she wants me to raise the child. After 6 years of dating, my longtime partner, Dexter, 29M, and I, 28F, were married last year. We met at a college function through common acquaintances. I was seeking a degree in business administration, and Dexter was studying engineering. Since the moment we clicked, we have been inseparable. To put things in perspective, I've always been competitive with my younger sister, Arya, 24F. She has attempted to do anything I did, first or better, since she was a young toddler. 3-year-old Arya hurled fits until our parents enrolled her in ballet courses when I was 7 years old. Even though she had never been interested in sports, she suddenly became interested in basketball when I joined the school team in the 8th grade. She insisted on taking lessons and putting in extra practice time. When I started playing the piano at the age of 15, in order to surpass me at the yearly recital, she did the same. Throughout high school and college, this trend persisted. Arya studied tirelessly till she received straight A+ with additional credit, while I received straight A's in my sophomore year. Arya put in endless effort to gain admission to an Ivy League university with a better scholarship after I got accepted to State University on a partial scholarship. Our parents supported her actions, viewing Arya as their ideal kid, while frequently ignoring my accomplishments. While I had to work part-time jobs to help pay for my tuition, they spent thousands on her Ivy League education. After learning about my relationship with Dexter on social media, Arya began dating his younger brother, Kenneth, 26M. A few months later, their connection appeared forced and Kenneth was in his senior year of high school. But the fact that the girls were seeing brothers was cute in the eyes of our parents. Dexter and I developed a close bond throughout the years, helping one another through our early adult challenges, first jobs, and college. Our parents disapproved of our moving in together after graduation, calling it living in sin. Yet they praised Arya's decision to live with Kenneth immediately after high school graduation as romantic. My grandparents were ecstatic when Dexter and I announced our engagement last year, anticipating the arrival of their first great-grandchild. In addition, my grandma gave me her antique cradle, saying she hoped to fill it soon. Arya was upset about this and couldn't bear that I was getting attention for once. She tried to overshadow us multiple times as we were organizing our wedding. Kenneth wasn't prepared, but she persuaded him to pop the question. We vehemently objected to her suggestion of a double wedding. She even attempted to attend our wedding wearing white, but our grandmother objected. Arya revealed her pregnancy at a family Sunday dinner 2 months after our wedding. During the news, Kenneth appeared startled and uneasy, nearly dropping his fork as she spoke. Arya purposefully became pregnant without telling Kenneth, as we later learned from mutual friends, in order to have the first grandchild in the family. She had stopped taking birth control without telling him. My parents were thrilled to have grandchildren. They focused all of their attention on Arya's pregnancy and totally forgot about our recent wedding. Every family get-together turned into a discussion about her nursery or baby shower ideas. While my father began establishing a college fund for the child, my mother spent hours shopping for baby clothes. After being given to me, my grandmother's antique cradle was abruptly moved to Arya's apartment since she needed it more. During a brother's night out, Kenneth told Dexter that he wasn't prepared to become a father. He wanted to concentrate on his recently launched IT profession first. He didn't know how to communicate his feelings of being confined and exploited without coming across like a villain. By claiming that their child required both parents, Arya persuaded him to stay. She even said that they needed to start living as a family and moved in with him at his parents' house. After the baby was born, the real issues began. Arya soon came to the conclusion that having a child was about more than just attracting attention and posting adorable pictures to social media. Even the most basic things like changing diapers or getting up for night feeds were difficult for her. Despite his best efforts, Kenneth was similarly unprepared. Both of them began to exhibit symptoms of being overwhelmed. Kenneth began staying late at work to avoid going home, and Arya would phone her mother at 3 a.m. to vent about how difficult things were. My folks invited Dexter and me to supper last week. We were mistaken to believe that it was simply a typical family supper. The fact that they had also invited Dexter's parents ought to have raised our first suspicion. My mother began discussing how anxious Arya was with the baby as soon as we sat down. She talked on how the kid was making things hard for her and how Arya needed time to figure out her life and job. She discussed how Arya needed a vacation and how her mental health was deteriorating. The unexpected thing came next. My parents said that since Dexter and I were stable, grown up, and had been married for a longer period of time, we need to adopt the child and raise it as our own. According to them, Arya could concentrate on her life and we wouldn't have to strive for our own child. I couldn't speak. Just because the real parents weren't prepared for the responsibilities they had consciously accepted, they were expecting us to look after someone else's child. We are currently under pressure from both of our families to change our minds. They constantly accuse us of being heartless for not assisting Arya when she is in need. But Dexter and I won't allow them to coerce us into accepting a duty that isn't ours. We never asked Arya to become pregnant, and we never asked her to utilize her pregnancy as a means of gaining attention. We're talking about a human being, not a car. Parenting proved to be more difficult than you anticipated. Therefore, you can't simply hand off your child. Update 1. Since my last post, things have become worse. My mother and Arya arrived at my place of employment yesterday during lunch. Somehow, the marketing company where I work in the city discovered my lunch routine. As I was making my way to my car to get lunch, they cornered me in the parking lot and made me listen to their suggestion. I could tell right away as they came up to me that this was no ordinary visit. Arya had black bags under her eyes and appeared to have not slept for days. She broke down in tears as she explained that she and Kenneth needed more time to work things out and that they weren't prepared for parenting. She insisted that parenthood was more difficult than she had anticipated and that she felt overwhelmed and confined. Then my mom told me about their new strategy. They proposed a 6-month trial period for Dexter and me to take the baby. They would come up with another plan if things didn't work out. They said this would ensure the infant was well cared for and give Arya and Kenneth time to organize their lives. In the parking lot, they even took a temporary custody agreement they had written out of their pocketbook. Arya went into a frenzy when I declined once again. She cried out that I was destroying her life and that I would help her if I truly loved her. She said that I was being bitter and self-centered by refusing to merely punish her, as she created the scenario. Several of my coworkers, who were also on their lunch break, paused to gaze. My mom tried something different. She mentioned that I had always desired children and that perhaps this was God's will, that I should raise Arya's child rather than mine. This might be our chance to become parents, she remarked, adding that blessings might occasionally come in unexpected ways. Her statement made me furious for its arrogance. Prior to calling security, I instructed them both to depart. They arrived at our house with Kenneth's parents at approximately 7 p.m. that evening. It's clear that they organized this ambush in the hopes of applying pressure on us if they banded together. Fortunately, Dexter was at home. He adamantly urged them to go when they resumed their emotional manipulation. They said they wouldn't go unless we complied with their demands. As though he had nothing to do with the predicament, Kenneth's mother began to weep at how her son's life was being destroyed. My mother added that Arya needed help since she was experiencing postpartum depression. They utterly ignored the availability of real medical and psychiatric assistance, making it seem as though taking their child was the only way to assist her. Arya then revealed the shocking information. She had already purchased tickets to Europe with Kenneth. Regardless of our consent, they intended to leave the baby with us. She reasoned that we would be forced to care for the infant if they simply abandoned it. We had no choice but to step up because she had an entire plan in place. They would drop the kid off for babysitting and then head off for their trip. Her selfishness astounded me, and I told her right away that I would contact CPS if she left her child behind. I told them that it was illegal to abandon a child and that if they carried out their plan, I would not think twice about reporting them. They all felt shaken by this menace. My mother began pleading with us not to call the police, claiming that doing so would destroy Arya's life and future employment opportunities. Kenneth's parents came in, saying that if we agreed, they would raise Dexter's inheritance. They even offered to purchase us a new car and a larger house if we took the baby. But we refused. We threatened to call the police for trespassing if they didn't leave. They couldn't believe we wouldn't fall for their tricks, and their shocked expressions when they realized we were serious were almost humorous. Arya made one final attempt to guilt-trip me before she left. She reminded me of all the times I had expressed my desire to become a mother, how I had always cherished kids, and how this might be my only opportunity to become a mother. She also implied that I didn't truly want to be a mother because I had refused. I informed her that my desire to become a mother did not entail condoning her reckless actions. I told her that she was the one who made the decision to become pregnant without giving it much thought and that she now had to face the repercussions of her choice. My mother cautioned us that we would come to regret our choice before they eventually went. She accused us of choosing to be unkind, instead saying that family should support family. In his will, Kenneth's father made it a point to reiterate that this would have an impact on our status. Dexter and I sat down and talked for a while after they departed. We came to the conclusion that we had to take action to guard against ambushes in the future. We're considering installing security cameras in our house, and I've alerted the security at work to any possible undesirable guests. The entire affair has demonstrated to us the extent to which our family would go in order to impose their desires on us. They obviously don't respect our personal space or our freedom to choose. If they persist in their harassment, we may pursue legal action. Update 2. I made the decision to speak with my grandfather following the ambush at our house and the parking lot incident. He has always been our family's sane voice, and I needed his viewpoint. Since my grandmother's bridge club normally meets on Wednesday afternoons, I waited until I was certain he would be by himself. I brought his favorite lemon cake from the local bakery when I paid him a visit at their home. He was reading the newspaper in his study when I got there, as he normally did after lunch. When he first saw me, he grinned, but as soon as he saw how upset I was, his face immediately became serious. I took a seat in the worn leather chair across from him, the same chair I had sat in as a kid when I came to see him after school. I told him everything right away, including Arya's willful pregnancy, her incapacity to cope with motherhood, and our parents' insistence that we accept her child. I described the ambush at work and how they threatened to leave the baby with us in an attempt to coerce us into accepting it. I could see his face shift from worry to rage as I talked. He already knew some of the narrative, but not the complete truth, which surprised me. He had heard an entirely different story from my parents. They claimed that Arya was upset when Dexter and I abruptly changed our minds about adopting the baby, after first offering to do so. Arya was shown as the victim of our brutality, and we were portrayed as the bad guys who refused to assist families in need. When my grandfather learned the truth, he became enraged. He found it incomprehensible that my mother, his own daughter, would attempt to make her elder daughter raise her younger daughter's child. Arya's intention to leave the kid with us and flee to Europe particularly infuriated him. He muttered that this wasn't how he and my grandmother had brought up their kids as he continued to shake his head. Even though my grandmother was at her bridge club, he contacted her right away. This demonstrated how seriously he took the matter, as he rarely interferes with her social activities. He made me repeat everything to her when she got home 20 minutes later. Both of them were clearly distressed by the time I finished telling my story. This had gone too far, they both agreed. My grandfather claimed to have seen my parents continuously favor Arya throughout the years, but he had thought they would change their ways. He now understood that this mess was the result of parental partiality, which allowed Arya to act carelessly while expecting me to tidy up after her. My grandfather then made a surprising offer. Among his many holdings was a lovely property in a peaceful area approximately an hour's drive from our own residence. The current occupants had recently left the residence, which had been rented out for years. He said we needed to get away from this toxic circumstance and offered to give it to us. I tried to say no at first. It felt impossible to grasp that the house was worth at least $500,000. However, my grandfather persisted. He claimed that he had intended to leave it to me in his will anyhow and that granting it to us now would enable us to get out of this predicament. My grandma concurred with him. Creating physical distance is sometimes the only way to deal with toxic family dynamics, she said. When we were ready, the house would allow us to establish our own family without any influence from either set of parents, she added. The very next day, they had the documents prepared by their lawyer. Although we wouldn't want to, the house was transferred to our names with the stipulation that we couldn't sell it for at least 5 years. According to our grandfather, this requirement was put in place to stop our parents from attempting to coerce us into selling it and handing over the proceeds. Dexter was in disbelief when I informed him about my grandparents' offer when I came home that night. Although he and my grandparents had always been friendly, this degree of assistance was surprising. We spoke about the offer and its implications for us all night long. Longer commutes to work would result from moving an hour away, but the calm and distance seemed worth it. We chose to accept the kind offer from my grandparents. Before we could move in, the house needed a few small repairs, but my grandfather offered to pay for those as well. He declared his desire for us to start over, away from the manipulation and drama we had been enduring. Update 3. We moved into the house my grandfather gave us 3 months ago. Our sanity has been greatly preserved by the distance. We changed our phone numbers as soon as we moved, limiting the new ones to my grandparents and a select group of reliable pals. In case someone tried to show up without permission, we also established a full security system with cameras. Our home has turned into a haven. The first month was devoted to repainting and personalizing it. I transformed a spare room into a library, something I've long desired, and Dexter turned another into his home office. We can plant and unwind in the spacious backyard, away from the chaos we left behind. Kenneth and Arya never visited Europe. They were forced to act as parents when they realized we were serious about calling CPS. Their common acquaintances have informed us that they are finally enrolling in parenting classes and looking for childcare assistance. When Kenneth's parents realized we wouldn't change our minds, they ceased scaring us with the inheritance. Through our mutual connections, my mother continues to try to get in touch with us. She sends messages claiming that we are siding the family and that going away is childish. She even attempted to contact me using my work email account, but fortunately my employer respects employee privacy. She wrote to me last week via one of my relatives, saying that we were being cruel by not assisting Arya, and that she was depressed as a result of our behavior. Although he hasn't tried to get in touch with us directly, my father has been telling everyone he can that we left the family when they most needed us. Although he is attempting to portray us as the antagonists in this tale, most people who are aware of the real facts will appreciate why we had to keep our distance. Throughout it all, my grandparents have been our staunchest allies. They have made it plain to everyone that they support our choice and frequently pay us a visit in our new house. My mother was even instructed by my grandmother to refrain from contacting us until she could respect our limits. They got into a heated argument over this, but my grandma refused to back down in the end. Dexter's parents expressed regret for attempting to control us by threatening to take our inheritance. They acknowledged in a letter that their attempt to coerce us into taking Arya's baby was incorrect. We're still keeping our distance, though. Months of coercion and pressure are not undone by a single apology. We've learned from the entire experience who genuinely cares about our welfare and who merely wants to utilize us to solve their problems. We finally come to grips with our choice and are eager to begin a family of our own, on our own terms. We learned last week that Arya and Kenneth are finally going to parenting classes and couples counseling. We're happy that they're receiving assistance, but we don't intend to get in touch with them again anytime soon. It will take more than a few months of good behavior to restore the confidence that has been damaged. We're content with our quiet new life for the time being. In addition to joining a neighborhood community garden and making friends in our new neighborhood, we also intend to adopt a dog. Sometimes, establishing enough distance to improve your personal happiness is the greatest approach to handle hurtful family relationships, and that is precisely what we are doing. We have no regrets about our choice. Now on to the next story. Story 8. My mother-in-law locked me in a bathroom during labor to stop me from stealing the spotlight at her daughter's wedding. I woke up in the hospital later. 2 weeks ago, my husband Richard, Rick, M30, and I, F29, welcomed a daughter into the world. We are certainly thrilled to have our first child. Our lives have been extremely hectic as we get used to being parents. We're doing our best, but it's a difficult shift for us both. Due to the events surrounding the birth of our daughter, May, we are not really able to get much assistance. I don't think I'll ever be able to forget it because it was one of the most horrific events in my life. I can't get over the crippling fear I experienced that day, not even with the joy of May's birth. Without my husband's prompt assistance, I believe I would have passed away. Since May is the family's eldest child, I believe that we should be a little kinder to them, despite the terrible incident. But I'm not sure, and all these hormones and infant responsibilities are impairing my judgment. I've gone to Reddit for assistance because of this. Please be patient with me, since this narrative may be lengthy and feature many characters. Rick's sisters are Emma and Anna, at 28 and 24, respectively. They are both younger than him. I think there is no hostility between us, and I get along well with both of them. Due to our hectic work schedules and infrequent meetings, we are not particularly close. Emma doesn't even reside in the same city as us, but we still make an effort to stay in touch by calling or texting her occasionally. My mother-in-law, Rachel, F53, is another significant figure in Rick's family and in this narrative. I get along well with Anna and Emma, but Rachel is a very different matter. I don't precisely agree with Rachel. I genuinely believe that she has an issue with everyone, not just myself. She simply never stops being the biggest control freak you can think of. Rachel wants everything to happen the way she wants it to since she was the one who reared her children after their father abandoned them. All three of them generally respect her desires. They make an effort to simplify their own lives. She does, however, react if someone tries to desire something different from what she desires. From dissatisfaction and moping to a full-blown meltdown with tears and tantrums, the response might vary widely. I try to avoid her as much as I can, since it gets hard to cope with her. Rick is aware of this. He allows me to keep my distance and handle his mother however I see fit because he knows she is problematic. I let it go because, despite her domineering behavior, I can relate to how he feels about her. She doesn't interfere in my life because she doesn't like me, which is good for everyone. But a few days earlier, she was solely to blame for things being out of control. Nobody can ever forgive her, in my opinion. Anna was getting married the day May was born. Her husband, Jonah, M30, is actually Rick's friend and the wedding was beautiful. About a year ago, he asked her to marry him. I had agreed to be a bridesmaid when Anna asked me to, but I knew I couldn't handle that. So when Rick and I learned I was expecting, I had to ask her to ask someone else. There were just 6 months left before the wedding, nearly 6 months after the proposal. I was 3 months pregnant at the time, and I knew I had to put my priorities first. I had anticipated criticism from Anna for abandoning me in the middle. Before I told her, I was twitchy and really anxious. I was relieved and surprised that our connection would not be permanently impaired, as I had expected. When I informed Anna, she was ecstatic. When I told her that I wouldn't be available for tasks, she actually forgot about her wedding for a bit. Her answer was to concentrate on looking after me in order to avoid me missing the wedding, which I would have if May had been born at that time. She even thought about moving it for a variety of circumstances that ultimately didn't occur. And to be honest, she shouldn't have done it in the first place. Even though it ended up being a near call, she remained there for me the entire time. I didn't bother the two sisters much during my pregnancy, which was terrifying for me, because Emma was the maid of honor and I knew they were busy getting ready for the wedding. They both came over, helped me a lot, and kept in touch as much as they could. Although Anna stood by me the entire time, I feel a little bad for not being there for her on the most significant day of her life. My mother-in-law was the only one who seemed a little angry about the whole situation. The wedding preparations were somewhat disrupted, and I believe she was irritated that I could no longer serve as the maid of honor. I could see where she was coming from and that looked like the only sensible explanation, but even after Anna was comfortable with the pregnancy and my not being the maid of honor, the animosity, for want of a better term, persisted. Even though the bride wasn't angry at all, Rachel somehow began to irritate me after that. It was strange, but I reasoned that perhaps she was nervous due to the wedding, and I was tense due to hormones. I persuaded myself that this was merely fabricating stories in my mind. I did my best to ignore her, and everything was good. During the wedding, everything literally and figuratively went out of control. When it happened, 2 weeks ago, I was insanely pregnant. My belly was enormous, my feet were bloated, and I thought I may faint. Nevertheless, Anna wanted me to be at the wedding, so I wanted to go. I wanted it to be her day, so I had asked her whether she wanted me to be there in advance. I informed her that I didn't want the attention to be diverted from her by the appearance of a hugely pregnant woman. The bride and groom should enjoy their wedding days, and I would hate to be the one to ruin that. Anna was genuinely insulted and saddened when I told her this. She stated she couldn't believe I wouldn't go to her wedding and instead fill my mind with this pointless concept. She claimed that all she wanted was for her family to be present to support her on her wedding day and that she didn't care about fame or attention. She urged me not to worry about drama and that I had to come. She meant it and I knew it. She doesn't hold back when speaking. She would have told me straight out if she didn't want me there. However, she did, and with great vigor. I felt that I had a responsibility to support her. Therefore, I knew I had to be there for her on her wedding day, despite my physical discomfort. I'll be honest, I tried my best to ignore the many mumbling voices because I knew Anna was glad I was there. For me, that was all that mattered at the time. Rachel glared at me the entire time and didn't say much to me. However, I was too uneasy to pay attention or notice. I simply left her alone because I lacked the energy to confront her or explain her passive-aggressive actions. I wasn't going to respond to her so she could glare all she wanted. Then came the major event that deeply stunned and damaged everyone around me, including myself. Just before the ceremony started, I started to feel apprehensive. Since I had previously met Anna, I decided to go upstairs in the hopes of feeling better and would come back afterward. I was unaware that Rachel was following me. I went to the bathroom because I felt strange and sweaty. My water suddenly broke. It was a real flood, and I began to panic because despite my deepest love for my daughter, she had arrived at the worst possible time. I was unable to think clearly. Fortunately, my mother-in-law was in front of me. I was crouched in agony by then. We had to hurry to the hospital, so I instructed her to grab my phone and call Rick right away. As she hurried up to me, I handed her my phone. As she helped me up and forced me to sit in the restroom, she lost it at that point. Because she didn't want me to take Anna's attention away from her, she promised to make sure Rick arrived an hour after the ceremony ended. I told her that I couldn't possibly tolerate this for an hour and asked if she was crazy. I attempted to grab my phone from her, but she took it with her and locked me inside there. I was sitting on a toilet in a restroom, practically on the verge of giving birth, without a spouse or a phone. I'm not sure how I avoided having a full-blown panic attack, but I'm glad I didn't, because I'm not sure what might have occurred if I had. I stood up, walked slowly over to the door, and began hammering on it. I kept screaming, but nobody could hear me because the restrooms were on the first floor and everyone was already seated for the wedding. I yelled until I could no longer be heard, but nobody arrived. I honestly thought I was going to die at that point and take my child with me. I had lost my voice, was soaked, sweating profusely, and was fatigued. I don't recall anything else after that. I'm not sure what transpired after I fainted from tiredness. I know I went to the hospital, but I can't even recall how I got there. A few hours later, I woke up in the hospital, sobbing, with Rick at my side. It took me a few moments to figure out where I was and what was going on. I thought the worst when I noticed Rick crying. I assumed May didn't make it, and everything came rushing back, including Rachel shutting me in the bathroom and my tears. Rick let out a sigh of relief and began sobbing in my arms as soon as he realized I was awake. I felt sick to my stomach and was unsure of how to interpret it. Then, with a breath of relief, I saw the nurse enter carrying a baby girl. Since Rick was playing me like that, I really wanted to slap him, but he insisted he wasn't. I was unconscious when he found me in the bathroom, so he was just glad I was all right. When I held my kid for the first time, I think I will always remember that moment. There isn't a better feeling in life, in my opinion. There is nothing that can ever compare to how I felt at those times. Since I didn't have the energy to cope with it at that point, I'm glad Rick didn't give me any details. I asked him what was going on because I could hear some noise outside. Rachel wanted to come in and see her granddaughter, he added. I explained everything that had transpired to him. I explained to him what she had done and how she had needlessly put our daughter at risk. I also informed him that I would never again permit her to be close to my daughter. She was dead to me. Rick claimed to be an expert. Rachel sobbed and told him everything when he found me in that way. I informed him that I would not forgive her simply because she had a breakdown. He chuckled and declared that he would file charges for life endangerment and that his mother was dead to him from now on. He promised to take legal action to ensure she was held accountable for her actions. His words made me feel as though a burden had been removed from my shoulders. All three of them adore their mother, and I know he does, but I wasn't in the mood to forgive her after the stunt she pulled that might have killed me and my daughter. Our marriage would have ended if Rick had picked her over me after that. There would have been no turning back. I secretly hoped that he would pick his mother, who had done a great deal to raise children in spite of everything. I'm not complaining at all, even though I may not have expected him to defend me in that manner. In fact, if it's possible, it has increased my affection for him. He told me the wedding went well when I asked how it went. In order to come see us, Emma and Anna were waiting for him to call. He laughed when I inquired if Anna was upset, telling me that I didn't need to be concerned about her at all. She has been beaming with happiness and pride. saying that May's birth was the greatest gift she could have had, and that her entire family attended the wedding. When he told me that, I was crying and begged him to call them right away. Jonah, Emma, and Anna joined me at the hospital in a matter of minutes. The greatest part was that Jonah and Anna were still dressed for their wedding, and Anna declared that she couldn't resist the opportunity to snap a wedding photo with her niece. It was such a touching moment that I burst into tears. I apologized to Anna for spoiling her day after the photo. She gave me a hug and told me that I was seeing things incorrectly because I had brightened her day. The only thing I did wrong, according to Anna, was not alerting them sooner. I informed her about my mother-in-law's actions ever since we announced the pregnancy. They could have stopped her drama, she thought. When I told Anna that I didn't want to start any problems, Emma added that as long as I was safe, any mischief was okay. When I realized they loved me like family, I started crying. Even as I typed this to them, I was more than just Rick's wife. I was family. One of the greatest women I've ever met is Anna. It's no surprise that she is where she is now, because she is so content and safe. How Rachel is so different from her kids is beyond me. They seem to have recognized that she wasn't what they wanted to be after seeing her. Anna had told Rachel on her way in that she would see to it that Rick and I filed charges. But apparently Rachel was still outside. I didn't want them close to me, but she wanted to come in and meet May. We must protect ourselves from her, Anna remarked. She felt she hadn't addressed her mother's overprotective tendencies or made it apparent that she didn't mind my pregnancy. So she apologized to me. Perhaps the situation could have been prevented if she had, she claimed. I assured her that she was not at fault because she had given me a sense of security. Rick was outside conversing with my mother-in-law the entire time. 2 to 3 days after my discharge, Rick informed me what he and my mother-in-law had discussed. When I returned home with May, he said that nothing would alter his decision to bring charges, which he had already told her he would do. He also informed her that she would never be permitted to be in May's life. In every way, she was not her grandma. Rick clarified that she had decided to endanger both our unborn child's and my lives over a perceived offense that didn't even bother her. Additionally, he informed her that the entire amount of money she had been relying on from Rick and Emma would be drastically cut. She broke down in tears and claimed she didn't deserve this, as she had dedicated her entire life to raising her children. Rick informed her that although he was grateful for everything she had done for them, it did not provide her authority over their life. He said that she was at fault and that he had been putting up with or overlooking everything she did for years, but that he was done. She had gone too far and demonstrated that she was unsafe to be around when it came to May and me. Her reasoning didn't hold water, especially since Anna and I never had an issue together. As a mother, Rachel acknowledged that Anna hadn't intended for me to take center stage. When Anna heard this, she attacked her. We are definitely moving on with the case, but Rick will take care of it because I can't handle this turmoil and I have a newborn to look after. I'll take care of it, Rick responded. The siblings no longer want to speak with her. Rick and I clearly don't communicate with her. Emma only speaks to her when it's absolutely necessary, and Anna has shut her off completely. My mother-in-law probably didn't expect this. Despite how twisted that seems, it's possible that she truly believed she was protecting Anna. Even though I have no intention of defending her, I still feel sorry for her because everything went so wrong. It feels wrong and bad to me now, and I'm wondering if they should speak it out with her. Maybe I'm not thinking clearly, but I'm not sure. I'm certain that Rick will lose it if I bring this up to him. He can't even look at her at the moment, since he is so mad with her. This isn't what I expected, yet here we are. Update 1. Reconciliation is permanently out of the question. I realize I haven't posted in a while, but I've been busy taking care of myself and my child as a new mother. Fortunately, May will be 8 weeks old in a few days, and we are all quite happy about it. Jonah and Anna have been tremendously helpful to Rick and myself. Emma calls nearly every day, but she had to return to work. Everyone's eyes are actually brightened by May. They swoon over her, and her photos are all over the group chat. My mother-in-law has not been contacted. I persuaded Rick that filing charges would be pointless because we already had too much on our plate, since neither of us had the energy for anything else. Rick reluctantly consented. Last week, My mother-in-law seemed appreciative when we told her. I use the word appeared, since last week the woman, who is truly insane, revealed her actual nature to everyone. Rick and I awoke to a loud knock on the door at around 1 o'clock in the morning. Rick went to open the door, but I fled and hid with May because I assumed it was a robbery. I heard shouting, but I was afraid to venture out for fear of waking May. As it happened, it was my mother-in-law. According to Rick, she was acting irrationally, yelling that we couldn't keep her away and that she needed to see May before she left. Rick had to threaten her with the cops. She was attempting to break in since everyone needed to know if something was wrong with her. We informed Anna and Emma right away. She texted us unsettlingly the following day. She began by claiming that we were punishing her because her sole transgression was becoming a mother and that we were being cruel and horrible to her by denying her access to May. Her text eventually became more disorganized, but there was still more melodramatic rubbish in it. She claimed that parenting 3 children was a burden and that she was constantly balancing the needs of one child over those of the others. She said that because she didn't want May to ruin Anna's birthday, she felt compelled to do that on May's birthday. Conveniently, she failed to remember that May was actually a fetus and Anna had repeatedly stated that she had no problem with the pregnancy and wedding taking place simultaneously. This part made sense to me, but what she said next startled me. She acknowledged that she was concerned she wouldn't be as significant to her children now that May was in our life. She assumed Anna would be upset when I told her I was pregnant, since that's how a normal woman would feel. She didn't like it, though, when she realized that we were all thrilled about the wedding and the pregnancy. In essence, she expressed her disapproval of the fact that we were all content with one another and with each other. She wanted us to be competitive and envious. She admitted that she hoped Anna would be upset with us when she realized the due date would be close to the wedding, so that May wouldn't steal the show. However, that did not occur. May was the only topic of conversation. She claimed that the fact that an unborn child had replaced her as the siblings' unifying element made her feel degraded. She kept sending texts like this, and when I requested Rick to block her, she was still typing. I informed him that she was dangerous for May and us all, since she was insane. Since seeing those messages, I've been suffering from a persistent headache. It's unbelievable that a woman in her 50s is competing against a 7-week-old child. I'm done with her. Therefore, it doesn't make sense to me and doesn't have to. I'm done defending her actions and attempting to figure out why she did them. I don't care if she ends up in hell. Anna and Emma were also distressed when we forwarded the messages to them. They believe she may be experiencing a manic episode. Emma promised to fly down and get my mother-in-law examined in a facility. Although I think it's an excellent idea, I will not be getting involved. I no longer want to interact with her because of her insane behavior. Update 2. A restraining order has been issued against my mother-in-law. We're exercising caution, but she hasn't tried anything else. Emma consulted with a doctor and a psychologist and had her tested physically. Everything is good with my mother-in-law. Her diagnosis was limited to generalized anxiety disorder. The doctors advised Emma to take her to treatment, stating that there was no underlying medical cause for her behavior. Since then, Emma has not gotten in touch. She stated that she was ready to assist if something went wrong, but she can no longer put up with my mother-in-law's hatred. I completely understand and agree with that. If she had a mental illness, I might have sympathized with her and supported her. But now that it has been ruled out, we can be certain that this is who she is. With such, there is no reconciliation. We received the restraining order for this reason. Her safety is the top priority for Rick, May, and myself, and my mother-in-law has shown herself to be unsafe twice. Furthermore, she harbors animosity for me in particular, so we need to be even more cautious that they avoid each other. I hope I never have anything else to say about this entire experience, and I believe this will be my final update. The family has been through a lot, and I'm simply thankful that we're all safe. Now on to the next story. Story 9. My husband and I had a threesome with his friend, and now he and his friend think I should continue having relations with the friend. I'm 29 years old, and my husband, Jake, is 34. We've always prided ourselves on having an adventurous sex life from the beginning of our relationship. We've been open to exploring different facets of our sexuality, always prioritizing communication and mutual consent. Our trust and openness have been the cornerstones of our relationship, allowing us to venture into areas that many couples might find intimidating. One of the ways we've spiced things up over the years is by inviting others into our bedroom. Threesomes have been an occasional but thrilling part of our sexual repertoire. Until recently, these encounters have always involved female partners. We found these experiences to be exhilarating and bonding. Each one brought us closer, reinforcing our trust and connection. Our last threesome, however, was different. It involved Jake's friend, Mark, who is 32. This was our first time bringing a male partner into the mix, and it added a new dynamic to our usual adventures. I won't lie, the experience was electrifying. The chemistry between Mark and me was palpable, and it was clear from the start that we were very into each other. The night began with drinks and laughter. The atmosphere was relaxed and comfortable thanks to the familiarity we all shared. Jake and Mark had been friends for years, and I'd gotten to know Mark well through various social gatherings. There was a natural ease between us, which made the transition to more intimate activities smooth and unforced. As the night progressed, we moved from the living room to the bedroom. The initial nervousness I felt dissipated quickly as we started to engage. There was an intensity between Mark and me that I hadn't anticipated. He was attentive, his touch igniting sensations that were both new and exciting. Jake seemed to be enjoying himself, too, watching us and joining in at intervals. The whole experience felt surreal, almost like we were crossing into uncharted territory together. The threesome itself was incredible. I experienced a level of pleasure that took me by surprise. Mark said and did things that were different from what Jake would typically do. It was like he instinctively knew how to push my buttons in ways that left me breathless. I reached climax 3 times that night, each one more intense than the last. I found myself getting lost in the moment, savoring every touch and sensation. In the days following, I couldn't shake the memories of that night. Despite the incredible physical experience, I didn't think much of it beyond being a great adventure. I believed that it was a one-time event, something to be enjoyed and then left in the past. Jake and I didn't talk about it much, which I took as a sign that we were both content to let it be what it was. A thrilling but isolated experience. However, things took an unexpected turn about a week later when Mark came over for drinks. We were all sitting in the living room, reminiscing about old times, when Jake suddenly suggested, "You two should have made love without me." I nearly choked on my drink. I laughed it off at first, thinking he must be joking, but the serious look on his face told me otherwise. I told him I wasn't interested in doing that, hoping to shut down the conversation quickly. Jake dropped the subject, but only until Mark left. Once we were alone, he brought it up again. He insisted that he had seen a connection between Mark and me that he felt we should explore. He even suggested that if I had found something good with Mark, I shouldn't give it up. His persistence baffled me. I reiterated that I wasn't going to sleep with Mark again. Jake seemed convinced that I would change my mind eventually and told me that he was okay with it, as long as I was honest with him about it. His insistence left me feeling confused and uneasy. That night marked the beginning of a period of inner turmoil and reflection for me. I was caught between the memories of the incredible night with Mark and my commitment to Jake. The experience had been enjoyable, but it wasn't something I wanted to pursue outside the context of our mutual exploration. I couldn't understand why Jake was pushing for it, and his pressure made me question the dynamics of our relationship in ways I hadn't before. In the days that followed, Mark began texting me, expressing his interest in continuing our connection. Despite the temptation, I knew deep down that pursuing anything further with him would be a mistake. I declined his offers, but his persistence and Jake's unusual encouragement left me feeling conflicted and uncertain about the future. The evening when Jake suggested that Mark and I should make love without him started off like any other casual gathering. It was a Friday night, and the 3 of us were lounging in the living room, sipping on drinks and reminiscing about old times. The atmosphere was relaxed, and laughter flowed freely as we recounted amusing stories from our past. Mark had come over for drinks, and there was a comfortable familiarity in the air. The memory of our recent threesome lingered, but I hadn't given it much thought beyond the initial thrill. It was an adventure something Jake and I had done together, and I assumed it was now a part of our past experiences. We were halfway through our second round of drinks when Jake, out of nowhere, suggested, "You two should have sex without me." The words hung in the air, startlingly clear despite the casual tone in which he spoke them. I nearly choked on my drink, my eyes widening in shock. I glanced at Mark, who seemed equally taken aback, and then back at Jake, hoping to see some sign that he was joking. But Jake's expression was completely serious. He met my gaze with a steady look, as if he was suggesting something as mundane as ordering takeout for dinner. "I'm serious," he said, his voice calm and measured. "You two had such a great connection during the threesome. I think you should explore that." My mind raced, trying to process what he had just said. This was not something we had ever discussed or even hinted at. Our threesomes had always been about mutual enjoyment and exploration, with clear boundaries and communication. The idea of me being with Mark without Jake's presence was completely outside the realm of what I had ever considered. "I don't think that's a good idea," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady despite the shock. I forced a laugh, hoping to lighten the mood and steer the conversation away from this unexpected and uncomfortable topic. "I mean, it was a one-time thing. I'm not interested in pursuing anything further." Jake didn't seem deterred by my refusal. If anything, he leaned forward, his eyes intent and unwavering. "I saw the way you two connected," he said. "It was different from anything I've seen between us. If you found something special, why not explore it?" I could feel a knot forming in my stomach. "Jake, I'm not going to sleep with Mark again," I said firmly. "It was an amazing experience, but that's where it ends. I'm married to you, and I'm not interested in complicating things further." Mark, who had been silent up until now, finally spoke up. "Jake, are you sure about this?" he asked, a hint of disbelief in his voice. "I mean, it was fun, but I don't want to cause any issues between you two." Jake turned to Mark and nodded. "I appreciate that, but I think it could be good for all of us. I trust both of you, and I think this could bring something positive." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My mind was a whirl of emotions: confusion, anger, and a creeping sense of betrayal. This was supposed to be a partnership, and Jake's insistence felt like a violation of the trust we had built. I needed to make it clear that this was not something I wanted. "Jake, this isn't happening," I said, my voice firm and resolute. "I love you, and I'm committed to you. I'm not interested in pursuing anything with Mark outside of what we did together. Please, just drop it." Jake sighed, leaning back in his chair. For a moment, I thought he might finally let it go. But then he spoke again, his tone softer but still insistent. "I just want you to be happy," he said. "And if being with Mark makes you happy, I'm okay with it. Just promise me you'll think about it." I stared at him, unable to comprehend why he was pushing this so hard. "Jake, you're not listening to me?" I said, frustration creeping into my voice. "I don't want this. I'm happy with you. Can't we just move on and forget about it?" Mark, sensing the tension, stood up. "Maybe I should go," he said awkwardly. "I don't want to be the cause of any trouble." Jake nodded, but as Mark left, he turned to me again. "We'll talk about this later," he said, almost as if it were a given that I would eventually see things his way. The door closed behind Mark, and the silence in the room was deafening. I looked at Jake, searching his face for any sign of understanding or regret, but all I saw was determination. It was as if he had made up his mind and was simply waiting for me to come around. That night, I lay awake in bed, my mind racing. I couldn't understand why Jake was so insistent on this. Did he really believe that I would be happier with Mark? Or was there something else driving his persistence? The thought that he might be trying to push me away or test my loyalty gnawed at me. In the days that followed, Jake continued to bring up the idea in subtle ways, each time met with my firm refusal. His persistence only deepened my confusion and unease. The relationship dynamics had shifted, and I wasn't sure how to navigate this new terrain. All I knew was that I had to stand my ground and make it clear that my loyalty and love were with Jake, and I wasn't going to let anything or anyone come between us. The days following Jake's shocking proposal were tense. I couldn't shake the feeling of discomfort and confusion that his suggestion had left me with. Mark's visit a week after the threesome only added to the complexity of the situation. When Mark came over, the atmosphere was charged with an awkwardness that hadn't been there before. We sat in the living room, trying to maintain the usual camaraderie, but there was an unspoken tension hanging in the air. Jake seemed oblivious, or perhaps he was pretending to be, as he laughed and joked as if nothing had changed. I, on the other hand, was hyper-aware of every glance and movement. As the evening wore on, I excused myself to the kitchen to get some space and gather my thoughts. While I was there, Mark followed me, his expression serious. "Hey, about what Jake said the other night," he began, lowering his voice. "Are you really okay with that?" I shook my head. "No, Mark, I'm not. I don't know why Jake is pushing this, but I told him I'm not interested in pursuing anything further. I'm committed to my marriage." Mark nodded, but there was a hint of something in his eyes. Disappointment, perhaps. "I get it," he said. "I just wanted to make sure we were on the same page." We returned to the living room, but the rest of the evening passed in a blur. When Mark finally left, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. I hoped that was the end of it, but it wasn't long before the text messages started. The first message came the next morning. "Hey, I had a great time last night. Just wanted to check in and see how you're doing." It seemed innocent enough, but I couldn't help but read into it given the recent context. I replied politely, keeping the conversation light and casual. But as the days went on, Mark's messages became more frequent and more direct. "I can't stop thinking about our time together," one message read. "You were incredible. Would you ever consider seeing me alone?" My heart raced as I read his words. The memory of our threesome lingered in my mind, and I couldn't deny that I had felt a strong connection with Mark. But this was different. This was stepping into territory that felt dangerous and wrong. I was married to Jake, and despite his strange encouragement, I knew in my heart that I didn't want to pursue anything with Mark outside of our mutual experiences. "Mark, I told you I'm not interested in pursuing anything further," I texted back, trying to be firm but not hurtful. "I'm committed to my husband." His response was quick. "I understand, but I can't help how I feel. If you ever change your mind, just know that I'm here." The persistence in his messages unsettled me. Each time my phone buzzed with a new text, a mix of anxiety and temptation coursed through me. Mark was attractive, and the sex had been incredible, but I knew that acting on those feelings would only lead to complications and heartache. As the days turned into weeks, Mark continued to text me, often late at night. His messages became more insistent, pushing the boundaries of our conversations. "You have no idea how much I want you," he wrote one night. "I can't stop thinking about what we could have together." I felt trapped between my growing discomfort and the remnants of the attraction I had felt during our encounter. Each message chipped away at my resolve, but I knew I had to stay strong. I began to distance myself, responding less frequently and keeping my replies short and to the point. One night, after another particularly persistent message from Mark, I decided I needed to take a firmer stand. "Mark, I need you to stop texting me like this," I wrote. "I've made it clear that I'm not interested. Please respect my boundaries." There was a long pause before his response came through. "I'm sorry if I've made you uncomfortable," he texted back. "I'll back off. But if you ever change your mind, you know where to find me." Yet the temptation was undeniable. Mark continued to text me, his messages filled with playful banter and subtle hints at wanting more. Each notification brought a mix of excitement and dread. I enjoyed our conversations, the way he made me feel desired and special, but I also knew that engaging with him was a slippery slope. Every time I replied, I felt like I was inching closer to a line I couldn't uncross. In my quieter moments, I found myself questioning everything. I wondered why Jake was so insistent on this arrangement. Did he truly believe it would make me happy, or was there something else at play? The idea that he might be testing my loyalty or pushing me away gnawed at me. Our marriage had always been built on trust and mutual respect, but this situation was unraveling those foundations. There were moments of introspection where I tried to dissect my own feelings. One evening, as I sat alone in the living room, I let my thoughts drift back to the threesome. I recalled the way Mark looked at me, the intensity in his eyes. It wasn't just about the physical pleasure. There had been a connection, a spark that was hard to ignore. I tried to understand why that connection had such a strong pull on me. Was it because it was new and exciting? Or was there something lacking in my relationship with Jake that I had been too afraid to acknowledge? These thoughts weighed heavily on me, affecting my daily life. I found it hard to concentrate at work, my mind constantly wandering back to the what-ifs and maybes. At home, the tension between Jake and me was palpable. We tried to go about our routines as usual, but there was an undercurrent of unresolved issues that neither of us seemed ready to address head-on. One afternoon, while I was doing laundry, I had a flashback to the night of the threesome. I remembered the way Mark had kissed me, his lips soft but insistent. I could still feel the warmth of his body against mine, the way he made me feel completely desired. The memory was so vivid that it left me breathless. I sank to the floor, overwhelmed by the intensity of my emotions. How could something that felt so good be so wrong? As the days turned into weeks, the emotional turmoil only deepened. Jake's persistence didn't wane, and every time he brought up the topic, it felt like a fresh wound. I tried to talk to him about my feelings, hoping to make him understand the depth of my conflict. "Jake, I love you," I said one evening, my voice trembling. "I don't want to be with anyone else. I'm committed to you. Why can't you see that?" He looked at me with a mixture of sadness and determination. "I know you love me, and I love you too. But I saw something between you and Mark that I can't ignore. I don't want to hold you back from something that could make you happy." His words stung, but they also added to my confusion. How could he be so willing to share me with someone else? It felt like he was pushing me away, and the thought of losing him was unbearable. The fear of what this could do to our marriage was ever present, casting a shadow over every interaction we had. In the midst of this turmoil, I sought solace and small moments of clarity. There were times when I would sit in our backyard, the cool evening breeze soothing my troubled mind. I would close my eyes and try to center myself, focusing on my love for Jake and the life we had built together. These moments of introspection were fleeting, but they reminded me of what was truly important. Despite the temptation and the confusion, my loyalty to Jake remained steadfast. I knew that pursuing anything with Mark would only complicate things further and potentially destroy the trust that Jake and I had worked so hard to build. But the path forward was unclear, and the emotional roller coaster I was on showed no signs of stopping. One particularly difficult night, I found myself lying awake, staring at the ceiling. My mind was a mess of thoughts and feelings, each one more confusing than the last. I turned to Jake, who was sleeping peacefully beside me, and felt a surge of love and protectiveness. This was the man I had chosen to spend my life with, the man who had stood by me through thick and thin. I couldn't let anything come between us. As I drifted off to sleep, I resolved to find a way to navigate this complicated situation without compromising my values or my marriage. It wouldn't be easy, and there would undoubtedly be more difficult conversations ahead. But I was determined to hold on to the love and loyalty that had brought Jake and me together in the first place. No matter how strong the temptation or how confusing the emotions, my commitment to my husband would remain unwavering. One evening after dinner, I suggested we sit down and talk. Jake could sense the seriousness in my voice, and he nodded, following me to the living room. We sat on the couch, the tension between us palpable. I took a deep breath, gathering my thoughts and summoning the courage to address the issue head-on. "Jake, we need to talk about what happened with Mark," I began, my voice steady but filled with emotion. "I can't keep going like this, feeling torn and confused. We need to figure out where we stand and what we want for our future." Jake looked at me, his eyes softening. He took a deep breath and nodded. "You're right. We do need to talk. I've been thinking about it a lot, too." I hesitated for a moment, unsure of how to proceed. But then the words started to flow. "When you suggested that I sleep with Mark without you, it really threw me off. Felt like you were pushing me away, and I didn't understand why. I need to know where this is coming from and what you really want. Jake sighed and ran a hand through his hair. I'm sorry for putting you in this position. I thought that by encouraging you to explore things with Mark, I was being open and supportive, but I realize now that it wasn't fair to you. He paused, looking down at his hands. The truth is, I've been feeling really insecure. Seeing you connect with Mark in a way that we haven't connected in a while, it made me feel like I wasn't enough for you. His admission caught me off guard. I had suspected that there might be underlying issues, but hearing him voice his insecurities made my heart ache. Jake, you are enough for me? I said softly, reaching out to take his hand. I love you, and I don't want anyone else. The threesome with Mark was a one-time thing, and I don't want it to go any further. I'm committed to you. Jake squeezed my hand, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. I know you love me, and I love you too. But seeing you with Mark brought up all these feelings of inadequacy. I thought that maybe if I encouraged it, I could somehow be a part of it and not feel so left out. But it backfired. I didn't enjoy seeing how much you enjoyed being with him, and it's been eating me up inside. Tears welled up in my eyes as I listened to his words. Jake, you should have told me how you were feeling. We need to be honest with each other about our insecurities and fears. Pushing me towards Mark only made things more complicated and painful for both of us. He nodded, his expression filled with regret. I know. I should have talked to you about it. I'm sorry for putting you through this. I see now that it was a mistake. We sat in silence for a few moments, both of us processing the weight of the conversation. Finally, I spoke up. I think the best thing we can do right now is to cut contact with Mark. It's clear that his involvement has caused more harm than good, and we need to focus on us. Jake agreed. You're right. We need to distance ourselves from Mark and work on our relationship. I want to rebuild the trust and connection we have. I want us to be strong again. I nodded, feeling a sense of relief and clarity. Me too. Let's commit to each other and make our relationship a priority. We can get through this together. Over the next few days, we took concrete steps to distance ourselves from Mark. Jake sent him a message explaining that we needed to cut ties for the sake of our marriage. Mark was understanding, though disappointed, and agreed to respect our decision. It was a difficult but necessary step, and it felt like a weight had been lifted off our shoulders. With Mark out of the picture, Jake and I focused on rebuilding our relationship. We scheduled regular date nights, took long walks together, and made a conscious effort to communicate more openly about our feelings and needs. We are Jake, I smiled, squeezing his hand. We faced some tough challenges, but we're coming out stronger on the other side. I love you, and I'm committed to us. As the days turned into weeks, our relationship continued to improve. We rekindled the passion and intimacy that had brought us together in the first place. Our sex life flourished as we focused on each other, exploring new ways to connect and satisfy each other. The threesome with Mark became a distant memory, a lesson learned about the importance of boundaries and communication. There were still moments of doubt and insecurity, but we faced them together, supporting each other through the ups and downs. Our commitment to each other never wavered, and we grew more confident in our ability to navigate whatever challenges came our way. Reflecting on our journey, I realized that the experience had brought us closer in unexpected ways. It forced us to confront our insecurities and communicate more openly. It reminded us of the importance of prioritizing our relationship and being honest about our needs and fears. Through it all, our love for each other remained the foundation that kept us strong. As we sat on the porch, watching the stars appear in the night sky, I felt a deep sense of peace and gratitude. We had faced a difficult trial, but we had emerged stronger and more connected. I knew that no matter what the future held, we would face it together, with love, trust, and unwavering commitment. Now on to the next story. Story 10. Dad left us for a depressed woman who claims he saved her. Now she's terrorizing our family and threatening unalive herself. Long story short, 2 years ago, my father left my mother to go with his mistress, whom I will call Anna, common name. My mother never had any idea about the infidelity. Anna knew that my father was married. She even went to the house with him to take his things. One day, he simply told my mother that he is no longer in love with her and wants to be happy with Anna. I was there when everything happened. Anna was depressed. She has many scars on her legs and arms. I don't go to my father's house. It makes me uncomfortable to be around them for obvious reasons. Anna is overly nice and it's really uncomfortable. A few days ago, it was my grandfather's birthday, and the whole family was together, including Anna. I have an aunt who suffers from depression and other more heavy things like schizophrenia. She has tried to hurt herself many times. At one point in the night, there were only my father, my aunt, Anna, another aunt, and I in the living room. For some reason, my aunt and Anna were talking about some serious things, and at one point, Anna began to say that depression made her do many things trying to feel fulfilled, that she could only overcome depression when she met my father and he saved her, that meeting him was the key to overcome her depression, and now she's finally happy thanks to him. I know about that because Anna often tried to bond with me by telling me how much she suffered in her life and how my father saved her. She has always justified herself that she was depressed and was in a hard place in her life before my father saved her. It always made me feel uncomfortable, and I don't feel empathy for her no matter how sweet she is. Talking about how many times you try to kill yourself in front of my 8-year-old sister is not something normal. Anna has always tried to paint her relationship with my father as a fairy tale that began in a different way, but that she doesn't regret anything because her world is perfect now. At that moment, my aunt said something like, "I tried to save myself by going to a psychologist, not by jumping on the dick of a married man." And then she began to say that depression made her want to jump off a bridge but not ruin a family. I just laughed. It was funny. My aunt may have her mind elsewhere all day, but it was crazy to see her make such a sly comment. But when my father was taking me home, Anna was crying, and he scolded me for laughing at what my aunt said, saying that no one knows everything that Anna suffered. I know she always talks about that. I didn't apologize, but now I think, was I really wrong to laugh? From my point of view, my aunt was right. Update 1. July 17th, 2024. Hello, some things happened over the weekend. My aunt came home. I live with my mother, and told my mom what happened. My mother hates my dad for obvious reasons, but still, she's been really nice to him and tried to keep us out of all those problems they have. My mother is honestly a saint. My sister is an 8-year-old girl, and she really hates Anna. Anna once tried to get along with my sister and told her about the time she wanted to commit suicide and how my dad saved her. After that, my sister came home asking my mother if she had ever thought about committing suicide. That's not a question an 8-year-old girl should ask, and my sister even asked me questions about suicide after that. I don't really know what else exactly Anna said to her, but it definitely affected her as a little girl. It's not even something you should talk about with a girl of that age. My mother was furious, and since that day, she forbids my father to have my younger sister near Anna as she considers her a dangerous and unstable person around children. Since that day, things have been really tense between my father and my mother. My little sister doesn't want to visit our father, so she is fine with us. My aunt told my mother that Anna talked about it again, but this time in front of me. Apparently, my father and Anna were totally forbidden to talk about these things in front of me too. I'm not a little kid, but apparently that was the arrangement my mother made with my father when she set boundaries for them. My aunt told her what happened that day, and I confessed to my mother that Anna and my father talk a lot about those suicide attempts in front of me, which is something I should have talked about before, but at that moment I didn't want problems and decided to just ignore them. I told my mom that for that reason, I am not going to my father's house anymore, and my mother got very upset with him. The next day, she went to talk to my father. I don't know what they talked about. She just came back saying that Anna can't get close to us anymore. She told me that she can't forbid me from being near my father and that's my decision. But Anna is extremely forbidden to set foot in the same place where I am or my sister. My paternal grandparents agreed and my aunts too. They knew about the situation with my younger sister. I haven't spoken to my father, but my cousin told me that my father argued with my grandfather. He often says that Anna is a good person and we don't understand the pain she suffered, so I guess he's upset with all of us now for our great lack of empathy, as he always says. I don't know, at least now I won't see them for a while. It was a boring update, but that's what happened. Haha. Update 2. August 9th, 2024. Hi, I wasn't planning to make another update, but we've had a lot of problems with Anna. Too many. And I think now even my father has realized that she's crazy. I have stopped going to see my father, and my father's parents stopped allowing him to go with Anna to their house since I am there a lot and my mother does not allow her to come near me or my sister. Anna began to have the strange behavior of starting to send me texts. First, she apologized to me but insisted that my father misses me and my sister. I replied to her that my mother does not allow us to talk to her, and she said that she is my father's partner so we have to get used to her being around. She started to talk badly about my mother, saying that I'm too young to realize it, but my mother is manipulating us, and that's wrong because she's not allowing us to be a family. I'm young, but I'm not dumb. I didn't answer her again and showed the messages to my mother who spoke to my father again. My father knew nothing about this and apparently had an argument with Anna about this. Since now my mother is planning to take away his last name from our name to end with this shit show and protect us. I don't understand too much about this, but in my country you can go to court and take out your father's surname, making him have no right over you anymore. I honestly believe that neither my sister nor I would have any problem with this, but I think my mother just said that to scare him. This is something I heard from my aunt, and I don't know how much of this is real, but my father has been staying at my grandparents' house. One of those nights, Anna went to knock on the door looking for him just to argue. She and my father began to argue. Anna yelled at my dad that he couldn't leave her like that, but nothing else happened because my grandfather kicked her out. My aunt also told me that my father told her that Anna sends him messages like, "If you leave me, I will kill myself. You can't leave me." So my father is afraid of leaving her and afraid of her. Less than 2 days ago, I found out that my father had to leave work quickly because she sent him goodbye messages. Nothing happened to her. She just cut her arms as always. My aunt said that this is something that Anna has always done even when the affair started. She sent him messages saying that she was about to commit suicide so that my father would go to her. This is something that Anna also told me, but in a more romantic way. It always scared me. I have no contact with my father, and I avoid him when he's at Grandpa's house. But as far as my aunt has told me, he doesn't know what to do since he misses us but is afraid to leave her and that she will kill herself. I feel bad for thinking this, but I'm really relieved to be hearing all this from afar. I'm so thankful that my mom forbade us to see her before all this happens, and honestly, this is his karma, so I'm not going to get into this. Now on to the next story. Story 11. Girlfriend secretly talked to her ex, told him I was cheating, and let him threaten me. When I gave her a choice between me or him, she chose him. I, 27M, am unsure what to do about my GF, 26. Some backstory. I met GFM 3 years ago at a store. We hit it off immediately. We spent all our spare time hanging out together and then 2 months later we started dating. Before we started dating, she told me of her past relationship. Her boyfriend during their relationship was verbally, emotionally, and sometimes physically abusive. She broke up with him after 3 years together. I met her roughly 2 years after the breakup. She knows I hate his guts, that I think of him as despicable, and I'm glad that this piece of shit lives 17 hours away. While they were together, M had made a bond with X's child. When we talked about this, I initially understood her feelings toward his child, having practically raised them, and supported her wanting to stay in contact. Her ex soon decided to cut her off shortly after we started dating. Nothing was heard from either of them for 4 months. Then the harassment came. He would blow up her phone with sexist jokes, saying how bad of a person she was, how he knows that she'd screw up her current relationship. The list goes on. I told her that this was unacceptable and to block him. She agreed and did so right then. Now we come to the present. We were in bed, and I will say that she has me check her phone if it goes off in case it's her parents as they're getting up there in age and we help out at their house quite often. It goes off. I check it and it's him. I shouldn't have, but I check the message and it opens the whole conversation and they're chatting as if they're good friends. I'm confused. I've lost count how many times she's told me she hates him and doesn't want to talk to him ever again. The latest being Saturday. But this has apparently been going on for at least a month and I'm shocked that she hasn't told me. When he tried to contact her last year, I didn't say anything as I didn't want to start the conversation at the time. She tried to hide it from me later when he texted again. seeing the notification and quickly scrolling past it when showing me something. I confronted her about it and she said that he's just talking to me about his kid, when there was no mentioning of him at all. I feel bad for intruding, but to see that going on, am I just insecure? I don't know how to calmly approach this situation with what I know and what I've been told. Update 1. So, I'd like to thank the users who took the time to respond to my post. In short detail, we broke up. I decided to have a sit-down with my GF. I asked her why she was really texting her ex. She said that she needed someone to talk to about life and vent, and apparently, he's a better choice for that than I. I also was shown all of the messages. She didn't bother trying to delete anything as it would show that it had been, but he was clearly trying to drag her back or break apart our relationship. Subtle flirting and even some knight in shining armor BS. She told him she thinks I cheated in the past with my former boss because I sent her and my manager memes and often helped her and her wife with projects to make extra money while they prepared to sell their house. I read multiple messages from him on how he would have beaten me to a pulp if he was still in town, how he was so upset that he put holes in his wall, the cheesy things, how he would never cheat on her, he cheated twice, and insisting that me helping them out was suspicious as it was only during the weekend I would do this, even though I always sent her pictures of the work I did, receipts for the supplies, even footage of me working from their home cameras they have for their 3 dogs, and there was never a question asked to me about what I was doing over there aside from what time I expected to be finished and was normally done on time or early. Oh, and I didn't mention that she didn't tell him we had gotten it sorted out, that I had never. In fact, she didn't tell him anything to dissuade him or diffuse the situation after he had threatened me like that. Nothing. Whether she thought it was serious or not, I was very upset by what I read. I felt like I had no value to her, that I wasn't trusted. No matter what I did for her, it seemed that I wasn't enough. I pressed her. I told her she has 2 options. She cuts him off and we go to therapy, or she can continue to have her chats with him and I walk away. Honestly, I should have just ended it myself, but I was curious as to what she would do. But it's over. She refused to cut him off, saying her only chance to talk to his child again is by talking to him. I told her, if that, a child that isn't even hers and a man who abused her, is all she really cares about, then good luck with that, grabbed my stuff and left. Rude, yeah, I let my emotions get a hold of me. I called her parents and ended up telling them we've split. They're great people. They told me they're sorry that things turned out the way they did. They've even invited me out for dinner Friday, just me and them, so I can get some of my tools I've loaned them and to talk more about this. I thought about declining their offer to dinner, but her mom is too sweet for her own good and her dad, and I always have a blast having a drink together. So I'm going Friday. I've doubled down on my decision, and knowing them, they probably won't press me to try to make it work after all this. I'm going to treat myself to a nice bottle of sake I've been saving in my fridge and just relax. Thank you for bearing with me on this huge-ass update. Update 2. Thank you everyone for your kind words, wisdom, and thoughts. Your comments have helped so much. Alas, this will be the final update. M has tried contacting me non-stop, from calling to messaging me on social media, begging me to talk with her and work things out. I replied only once, saying that I gave her a chance to work this out, to compromise and go to therapy together, only for her to refuse and choose her ex and child over me. Apparently, yesterday he cut contact with her, blocking her on everything, and honestly, I saw it coming, but he'll probably do it all over again when she finds a new guy. She's a wreck and I pity her somewhat, but she's made her bed and it's time for her to lay in it. I told her that there will be no second chance, that I was finished the moment she made her values clear and again suggested she get therapy. I wished her the best and then deleted her off my phone and anything else she was on. I went out to dinner with her parents last night and it was actually a good time with them. Her parents were kind yet to the point. Her parents told me not to mince words or leave bits out and just tell them exactly what had been going on. I tried to tell them that while I respect them, that I did not want to drag them into our relationship problems and wanted there to be no issues with them and their daughter. Well, her dad told me they had already had a long talk with M and regardless wanted to hear my input. So we talked. I told them about her ex and kid, his threats, him trying to break up our relationship. Well, I guess you can say he did now, her lying and hiding his messages. I told them I gave the choice and what she chose. I insisted to them that they take her to seek professional help, that if she keeps this up, She's going to tear herself up in any future relationship. I want her to be happy someday, but it just won't be with me. I'm tired of the lies and deceit. I just want to move forward and live my life, and I hope she can do the same. Their response was not exactly what I expected. They apologized to me for her actions, that they were disappointed that things turned out as they had, but supported my decision to walk away from her. I won't lie, I had expected them to ask me to talk to M and try to move past it. But no, there was not even an inkling to that. Her mom came and gave me a hug, but her dad just seemed dejected. I'd never seen this man look this way, and it felt like a punch to the gut. It hurt seeing him like that, knowing there was nothing I could do. We ended up just sitting there in silence for a minute before he decided to order a round of shots. A round turned into two, and that seemed to help relax everyone as we started chatting about my future plans, their retirement goals and hopes. We were out for 3 hours, chatting as if we were just normal people. I had a great time, even while it hurt. We cried a few times. We also laughed and remembered past times when we'd make a fool out of ourselves. When we were about to part ways, her dad gave me a bone-crushing handshake and a hug, which her mom ended up joining in. This man has never hugged me, so I was really caught by surprise. They told me to take care of myself, eat healthy, don't sink yourself in alcohol, and just focus on getting through the days. They're going to look at options for therapy for M and recommended that I do the same, which I think I'll do. They handed me a bag with my tools, said they're going to miss me but wished me the best. I gave them my goodbyes and we parted ways. I feel like a huge weight has been lifted both off my chest and my shoulders. I decided I'm taking a break from dating. One day I'll find someone, but that's all in the back of the mind. To others who may be going through similar situations, talk to your partners. If you've only talked about going to therapy, schedule a session. If not for you both, do it for yourself. Do not sacrifice your mental nor physical health for the sake of a relationship. If it's not healthy and attempts of improving your relationship fail, walk away. I know for many it's not that simple, but when will enough really be enough for you? We have reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us your thoughts about the stories in the comments section. Thank you and see you in the next video.